Welcome to the fantasy audiobook. False Eunuch. With many children, I'm as happy as a fish in water. Chapter 61. Although Shui Biao is not a member of the martial arts world, he has heard of the name Junzi sword. Making friends with righteous warriors in the martial arts world is something that many disciples of high-ranking families do. This is especially true for merchant families like the Shui family who need to travel all over the world. In order to avoid suspicion these years, he, Shui Biao, was afraid that the people of the head of the Shui family would gossip and say that he was thinking about his position as the head of the family. Therefore, Shui Scorpion follows the caravans all year round, from the desert in the north to the Nanman Islands in the south. Among them, as a well-known and righteous sect of local snakes everywhere, Shui Biao often dealt with them. Shui Biao, who knew that harmony brought wealth, established good relations with these righteous forces so that the caravan could pass smoothly. Nature. The Zhengdao sect is also happy to make friends with such a rich man as Shui Biao. Although they are powerful in numbers, they are still human beings and need various expenses. Where does this money come from? Some of the local gentry and landlords were worshippers, and most of them were businessmen like Shui Biao who were willing to be friendly and make money. Master Yu, these White Lotus sect thieves are so numerous right now, what should we do? This Shui Scorpion has seen a lot of things over the years, and his expression is still calm at this time. Hearing this, Yu Bukchun also had a trace of worry in his eyes. With his level of martial arts training as a Washan disciple, he could break out of the encirclement no matter what. But the people in Shui Biao's caravan couldn't escape. Right now, it is nothing more than a choice to spend money and survive. Yu Bukchun looked at Shui Biao with a hint of inquiry in his eyes. Shui Biao was also a human being and immediately understood what Yu Bukchun meant. He is not a businessman who regards wealth as his life. Master Yu, the caravan also has a wife and children from a certain family, do you think? No problem, Yu asked junior sister to take care of shopkeeper Shui's wife and family. Hearing this, Shui Biao subconsciously looked at the heroic Ning Zongs, and immediately felt at ease. If Ning Nuxia takes care of him, then Shui will be relieved. Shui Biao paused and continued to express gratitude. When Shui is rescued, he will definitely reward Washan with great kindness. The implication: if it was time to survive in rank, Yu Bukchun would only need to take Shui Biao himself and his family members with him, and Shui Biao would also give him a big gift afterwards. Hearing this, Yu Bukchun looked at this Shui family member who had not interacted with him many times, with a hint of admiration in his eyes. These days, there are not many high-ranking disciples like him who are as knowledgeable as he is. Perhaps, we can deal with each other more. But, at this time, Yu Lingshan, who was wearing a light-colored goose-yellow skirt, trotted over to her father. Daddy, Lingshan, what are you doing here? Yu Bukchun frowned slightly and looked at the blood on the sword in his daughter's hand. Dad, do you still remember that General Lin Chen led his troops to station in Akang a few days ago? Lin Chenjia, Akang, shop manager Shui, how far is this place from Akakura? Shui Biao was startled when he heard this and said uncertainly, about 30 miles. 30 miles. Hearing this, Yu Bukchun's eyes flashed with some thought. Shop manager Shui, if this is the case, then we may have help. Yu Bukchun's words left Shui Biao confused. Helping hand. Where can I find help in this deserted place? Yu Bukchun did not explain, but called two of his capable disciples. Lu Dao, Loudno. There are very few entry-level disciples in the Washan sect, and the one who stands out among them is senior brother Ling Guchong. It's just that after the evil disciple came down the mountain, he didn't know where he went. At the moment, Yu Bukchun plans to leave the matter of asking for help to Lu Dao and Lao Danuo. Soon, a thin young man with a smile on his face, and a nimble little mountain monkey wrapped around his shoulders. The other man is tall and has a simple face. Master, Lu Dao wanted to be extravagant, but he still respectfully saluted Yu Bukchun. Yu Bukchun looked at the 6 disciples with a slightly relieved expression. Although this disciple likes to cheat and play tricks when practicing martial arts, he is humorous and not annoying. As for this Lauderno, he is not bad in talent and is honest. Yu Bukchun could feel relieved by letting these 2 people go ask for help. Immediately, Yu Bukchun told Lu Dao and Lao Danuo about Akakura's location and the need for help. Yes, master. Hearing this, Lu Dao quickly patted his chest and said that he could just leave the matter to him. Lauderno nodded calmly. In this case, I will help you to break out of the encirclement. As he said that, Yu Bukchun looked at the flood of White Lotus sect thieves in front of him with a cold look in his eyes. The warrior who took action the day after tomorrow was truly earth-shattering. Just watch the sharp sword light mixed with a touch of awe-inspiring purple energy flash across the bodies of dozens of White Lotus sect thieves, and then sizzle with blood. The latter fell to the ground without saying a word. This scene, it shocked the surrounding White Lotus sect thieves, and at the same time boosted the morale of the struggling caravan. Captain Niu of the White Lotus sect, who originally planned to reap the benefits, changed his expression drastically. There are still masters, Captain Niu thought secretly in his heart. This group of White Lotus believers will definitely not be able to defeat each other, and things will change if they wait too long. He immediately waved his hand. Crossbowmen. As soon as he finished speaking, hundreds of relatively strong White Lotus soldiers came out holding bows and crossbows. Looking at these crossbowmen, Yu Buchan's expression changed slightly. To him, these crossbows were not a threat. However, it's different for caravan guards. The arrows that were shot in a row killed several guards on the ground. The caravan guards, who only had simple leather armor on their bodies, screamed and retreated step by step. This scene also made Shui Dao look pale. He had never seen such a bloody scene. Hold on for 2 sticks of incense, and rescue will arrive. Shui Biao knew very well that the guards under him would collapse, so he had no choice but to shout through gritted teeth. At the same time, he promised high interest and a reward of 100 taels of silver afterward. Even if he died, he would send the reward to his family. Shui Biao's good image among the caravans over the years gave these caravan guards who originally planned to surrender their eyes bloodshot and regained their courage. As the saying goes, birds die for food and people die for wealth. HMPH. Colonel Niu snorted coldly as he looked at the unabated resistance. He didn't care too much, but instead summoned his thousands of White Lotus soldiers to protect him in the middle. There are experts in that caravan. If the other party chooses to behead him, wouldn't he be unlucky? Niu Xiaowei, who was only a third-rate warrior, knew very well that the bursts of purple sword energy just now made it easy to kill him. However, although the warrior's personal power is so terrifying, he does not dare to forcefully charge into the battle formation. It's nothing more than eroding the caravan defense line in front of them little by little. Fire the arrows, keep firing. Colonel Niu called to his crossbowmen. But didn't notice. 2 figures broke out of the White Lotus sect's surroundings and ran away. These 2 people were none other than Lu Dao and Lao Denuo. This Luo Denuo is a second-rate warrior, and this Lu Dao is also the pinnacle of a third-rate warrior. The 2 of them used their inner strength to rush forward, and their speed was much faster than any supercar. General, the way of the cavalry army lies in attacking and harassing. Lin Chen looked at Yang Qilang, who kept talking about the advantages of cavalry, and laughed in his heart. General Yang's military strategy and family knowledge are indeed extraordinary. Because of this, Lin Chen just planned to steal some lessons from the Yang family general. Certainly, for the 3 generals of the Yang family, this was a test for Lin Chen. After all, Lin Chen had memorized the lifelong art of war compiled by Mr. Jia, and he could use it as conversation material to frighten these 3 people. Not bad. Lin Chen kept what Yang Qilang said in mind, but said it in a calm tone. Hearing this, Yang Qilang was the youngest after all. Hearing the appreciation in Lin Chen's words, he beamed with joy. Rumble. In this camp, Lin Chen selected 2,000 soldiers to train them into cavalry. The war horses used were naturally those previously captured from the White Lotus sect army. Only, Lin Chen shook his head imperceptibly as he looked at these cavalrymen who were barely able to ride a horse and hold a bow, and could not stop shaking on the horseback. At present, his cavalry army can only be regarded as mounted infantry. But Lin Chen had an idea. That is to make stirrups. Certainly, after thinking about it again and again, Lin Chen gave up this choice. What stands out about stirrups is just an ingenuity, with no technical content. Just look at it and you can copy it. Lin Chen only had an army of 1,800 men under his command, but using a powerful weapon like the stirrup would be advantageous to other forces. At least it will have to wait until Lin Chen has tens of thousands of horse troops under his command before it can be promoted. As for now, I still rely on training to hone my skills. Drink, ha. At the same time, soldiers' martial arts are still being practiced in the military camp. Among them, those with outstanding talents can also learn martial arts techniques. However, the martial arts skills learned by ordinary soldiers are very superficial and can only be regarded as third-rate martial arts in the world. Certainly, the advantage of martial arts techniques is that they only require polishing the blood energy and can be achieved quickly. On the other hand, warriors need to transport Zhou Tian's internal energy and endure hardship step by step. There are also martial arts techniques that are more focused on killing, and it is difficult to meet opponents at the same level. Unfortunately, once you reach the age of physical decline when practicing martial arts, your strength will decline very quickly. But for the military, the benefits of this martial arts technique are obvious. With Lin Chen providing a large amount of meat, most of his soldiers' strength increased by dozens of kilograms, and a few even reached the threshold of third-rate warriors. Report. At this moment, Lin Chen, who was watching the martial arts performance, noticed a soldier running towards him in a hurry. General Lin, there are 2 martial arts people outside, saying they are disciples of Head Yu, coming to ask for your help. Oh, Lin Chen raised his eyebrows and asked people to bring the 2 people into the military camp. General Lin, a certain family belongs to Lu Dao, and this is Luo Denuo. Facing Lin Chen, whose military power was so majestic and his momentum was unfathomable, Lu Dao put away his temper and said honestly. When Lin Chen heard this, he subconsciously looked at the honest-faced young man in front of him. The opponent's hands were calloused and his body had thick blood. If he remembered correctly, this person seems to be a spy planted by Zhuo Lengchen in Washan, right? Lin Chen had a hint of amusement in his eyes. Lauderno lowered his head and did not notice anything strange about Lin Chen. The only thing he felt was a terrifying sixth sense sweeping over his body, making him dare not move. Tell me what happened. Lin Chen chuckled. After hearing this, Lauderno raised his head and explained the reason. The Shui family caravan. Lin Chen's eyes narrowed slightly after hearing the keywords in the other party's description. Is it the Shui family he was thinking of? Lin Chen, who pondered for a moment, gave instructions that made Lu Da extremely happy. The general in front of him was actually willing to help. Boom! Lin Chen led an army of 2,000 cavalry and 3,000 infantry out of the stronghold. The 3 generals of the Yang family, who were Lin Chen's personal guards, could not hide the excitement on their faces. Going into battle to kill the enemy and being awarded titles for meritorious service is the lifelong pursuit of these descendants of martial arts. Now that Lin Chen, the general, is highly valued, the 3 generals of the Yang family will naturally not let go of such a good opportunity to show off. At the same time, Captain Niu's face looked a little ugly. The martial arts master in the caravan actually chose to stop the arrows that threatened the caravan the most instead of killing the White Lotus cult thieves. Everyone, rush forward and kill this caravan. The angry Captain Niu issued the command of stud, and at the same time began to play with the military formation techniques he had just learned. With the addition of the well-equipped White Lotus priests, the caravan immediately became in danger. Yu Bukchun looked at the light red blood glowing from the White Lotus soldiers, his eyes narrowed. Is this the military formation? Yu Bukchun had only heard that generals could use military formations, and then involve their subordinates to exert terrifying power. The sporadic light red blood light collided directly towards the caravan. The power of this strike alone is close to the full power of a first-rate warrior. Not to mention that the military formation mixed with blood and energy made Yu Bukchun feel a little stagnant in his body. Yu Bukchun understood now. Why is it recorded in the sect files that Emperor Li Tang had raised a butcher's knife against several first-class sects? There are dozens of acquired warriors like him, as well as legendary innate warriors. But under Li Tang's military front, they were completely wiped out. This is just the power of the military formation gathered by thousands of miscellaneous soldiers. If it were the hundreds of thousands of cavalry gathered together by Li Tang when he founded the country. Yu Bukchun couldn't believe how terrifying it was. Even so, Yu Bukchun could only bite the bullet and push forward. After all, if the White Lotus sect's military formation were to break into the caravan, it would be all over. The thief is so brave. Yu Bukchun raised his body and floated several meters into the air, his purple clouds surging with internal energy. Boom! The tip of the military formation hit the dazzling purple light, and countless unlucky White Lotus followers were thrown away. During the fight, Yu Bukchun discovered that the opponent's general was just a showman. Obviously, the opponent has just taken advantage of this military formation. This made him feel a little relieved. On the other hand, Lin Chen has already arrived with his horse army. Why does the White Lotus sect use the military formation method? He noticed the blood on the White Lotus priest's body and his eyes narrowed. You must know that the military formation method is the foundation of military training and the foundation of a country. In this world of Li Tang, hiding weapons and armor privately is not a big deal. Only a minister secretly hiding the military formation method is a capital crime of confiscating his family and exterminating his clan. Only high-ranking military attachés of the imperial court were qualified to practice the military formation method. There is a description of the military formation method in Zhao Guogong's book, and he highly praised it in his speech. Lin Chen is not qualified to learn the military formation method at the moment. Where did these White Lotus sect members get this military formation method? Thinking back to the White Lotus sect army before, if the leader had learned the military formation method, Lin Chen must have turned around and ran away without saying a word. Joke. Even if he is an acquired warrior, he would not dare to face such military might. But now, the leader of this White Lotus priest can actually display a military formation. Remember, capture the commander of the White Lotus sect alive, Lin Chen said in a cold voice. The other side, Yu Bukchun swept his sleeves with a heavy look on his face, and continued to use the strong inner strength in his body to withstand the impact of the blood and energy of the 3,000 White Lotus priests. Fortunately, at this moment, the sound of horse hooves shook the sky. Hearing the noise coming from far away, Head Yu's expression turned from worry to joy. Captain Niu of the White Lotus sect also heard the sound and subconsciously turned his head to look. He was startled by the scene he saw, and he didn't understand why there were imperial horse troops here. The cavalry, which stirred up dust all over the sky, rushed directly behind the White Lotus sect army that was besieging the caravan. The first to bear the brunt was the military formation he commanded. Not good. Change. Although Niu Xiaowei was just a rogue who wandered between villages and towns in the past, after joining the White Lotus sect, he learned a lot of martial arts from the protector. If he didn't stop the rampaging imperial cavalry, his subordinates and the White Lotus followers would be completely defeated. Only, he saw that the current situation was not good, but there was nothing he could do about it. Niu Xiaowei's soldiers couldn't understand what their general was shouting in panic, and turned to look at each other blankly. The military formation that was originally relatively stable was now on the verge of collapse. It was not until these White Lotus priests heard the shouts of killing coming from behind that they were stunned. Run! Do not kill me! These White Lotus sect believers are just a bunch of rabble. Especially after being unable to attack for a long time and suffering heavy losses, their morale has dropped to freezing point. The officers and soldiers of the imperial court who were about to attack fiercely were crying for their fathers and mothers and wanted to escape. Thief, where are you running? Yang Qilang charged at the front. The young man who had just entered the battlefield was full of confidence and regarded the White Lotus sect thieves in front of him as nothing more than a chicken and a dog. Qilang, Yang Sanlang and Yang Wulong looked at each other. Lian confessed to Lin Chen and wanted to catch up in case something happened to his younger brother. Lin Chen naturally nodded in agreement. How brave! Captain Niu, who heard Yang Qilang's voice, subconsciously looked at the young general with bright armor and a spear. After noticing the young face of Yang Qilang, Niu Xiaowei became angry. You and other officers and soldiers of the imperial court do not take me seriously. Immediately command the soldiers under his command to greet him. The White Lotus priests moved from the back row to the front row, but the formation became turbulent. It is human nature to fear death. Not to mention watching the tall cavalry in front of me rushing over in a daze. Anyone who is not mentally ill will hide to both sides driven by instinct. In this way, the military formation of the White Lotus priests was in chaos. Good chance. Yang Qilang noticed the changes in the military formation in front of him, and his eyes flashed. Put up the gun, raise the gun. Captain Niu shouted sharply. Hearing this, the White Lotus priests in the front row instinctively raised their spears and held them in front of them. Seeing this scattered array of spears, Yang Qilang showed a look of disdain on his face. Drink. Yang Qilang vigorously waved the spear in his hand with both arms, and the spearhead flew towards him, and all of them were cut off. Taking advantage of the situation, he harnessed his power and crashed into the bodies of several White Lotus priests. The formation of the White Lotus priests seemed to have been chewed into a piece of cake. Several White Lotus priests who were knocked away were vomiting blood and looked like they would not survive. Kill. Upon seeing this, these cavalrymen, who had not been trained for long, became energetic and bent their bows and arrows as they did in daily drills. Call out. Lin Chen looked at the arrows that sparsely landed in the White Lotus sect's formation and couldn't help but shook his head. Certainly, he didn't have too many demands on these cavalry whose training time was still short. Shichiro, fifth brother is here to help you. The spear in Yang Wulong's hand is opened and closed widely. If you rub it, you will die. If you touch it, you will die. It is unstoppable. Seeing this, the White Lotus priests who came up from all around retreated in fear. Then Yang Sanlang will look much more experienced, his moves are crisp and sharp, and every shot will definitely kill a White Lotus priest. So many masters. Captain Niu looked at his own military formation, but in the blink of an eye he was killed by the three powerful imperial generals with a horrified expression. Captain, wait and see me. A White Lotus sect commander said angrily and immediately clapped away. Just look at the commander who is holding a mountain axe and has a tall and powerful figure. Go to a certain family too. When several White Lotus sect commanders saw this, they immediately felt their blood boiling and followed them. Yang Qilang, who was in the middle of the fight, felt a strong blood energy coming out not far away, and his face became more and more excited. Finally a rival came. Only. The mountain axe and the spear crossed each other, and the burly general jumped straight from his horse and fell to the ground. If you look carefully, an inch below the opponent's mouthpiece, there is a transparent hole. TCH, I thought he was some kind of hero. Yang Qilang spat, but it turned out that he was just a low-ranking warrior. The other two Yang brothers were also paying attention to their younger brother's situation. After seeing that the other party killed the general of the White Lotus sect, their tense bodies relaxed slightly. Fifth brother, what if you and I work together to capture the leader of the White Lotus? Follow third brother. Yang Wulong's tone was full of pride. These White Lotus sect thieves are really looked down upon by the two of them. I just don't know where the White Lotus sect got this military formation method from. Yang Wulong began to think in his mind. It's a pity that the military formation method was blindly abolished. In his opinion, the general who commanded the soldiers had learned a little bit about military formations. If we can unify the army independently in the future. The Yang family also has a family tradition of military formation. Although they usually don't dare to show it off, their identities are now completely different. Lin Chen looked at the cavalry troops that were dividing and surrounding the White Lotus religion soldiers, and nodded imperceptibly. There are 3 Yang family generals who will act as vanguards and open the way, and no one can stop them along the way. In this world, a general's personal strength can indeed affect the outcome of a battle. Captain Niu's dark face was actually a little pale. The few White Lotus cult altar leaders who were originally following him escaped completely at this time. Captain, what should I do? The few generals whose self-reliance and bravery were only inferior to those of Niu Xiaowei rushed forward and disappeared. Yang Qilang shot each of these generals who were not even third-rate warriors. Lieutenant Niu was surrounded by his personal guards who usually treated him well, so they didn't leave him just now. What to do? Captain Niu originally wanted to lead his men into the battle in person, but when he saw the Yang family generals rushing towards him, he suddenly lost his courage. Because he saw it. Each of these 3 people is a second-rate warrior. If he resists, wouldn't he be destined to die? Then, Captain Niu made a bold decision. Surrender. A certain family has surrendered. Captain Niu immediately kowtowed and knelt down very simply. The guards around him were all dumbfounded. Only Yang Sanlang and Yang Wulong, who were already 10 steps away, frowned. Although his general wants to be captured alive. But the other party voluntarily surrendering and being captured are 2 different things. Tied. The other party had voted, and it was hard for the 2 of them to say anything. Master Yu, have we met again? Yu Bukchun listened to the joking meaning in Lin Chen's words, smiled bitterly, bowed his hands and said, "Thank you, General Lin, for the rescue." Shui Biao stood beside Yu Bukchun to keep him company, but his eyes were looking at the general wearing a ghost mask in front of him. Don't say it. He had been all over the world, and this was the first time he saw a general dressed like Lin Chen. Shui Biao, General Xie Lin comes to the rescue. Compared to Yu Bukchun, Shui Biao's attitude was more humble. As he spoke, he did not forget to ask the boy to carry a heavy box. I can't thank you enough for saving my life. Please accept it, General Lin. Lin Chen didn't expect the other party to be so capable, so he asked pretending to be surprised, "Your surname is Shui, are you a descendant of the Shui family in Jiangnan?" What the general said is true. Shui Biao admitted his identity openly. Or, even if Lin Chen didn't ask, he would still find a way to reveal his identity. These days, sometimes people are even more unreasonable than bandits. He didn't know the character of the general in front of him. If the other party took a fancy to the caravan's property, he could blame the White Lotus sect by killing them. Although the Shui family in Jiangnan was just a merchant's home, it had a close relationship with Jia Guofu. Lin Chen heard Shui Biao nodding and had a guess about the other party's identity. In the book, in addition to the head family of Shui Baochai, the Shui family also has a collateral uncle. Compared to Shui Baochai, whose elder brother was called Dai Bawang, Shui Biao had a daughter and a son, and the eldest son was quite capable. Is there some connection between General Lin and the Shui family? Shui Biao saw that Lin Chen felt a little surprised when he heard him mention the name of the Shui family, so he couldn't help but ask. Lin Chen couldn't help but chuckle in his heart when he heard this. As expected of a businessman, he will strike up a relationship when he sees the opportunity. This general has only heard the limericks written by your Jiangnan Shui family. Lin Chen suddenly looked at Shui Biao, and said with a certain meaning in his eyes, but it is said that the harvest is so good with heavy snow, that pearls are buried in the soil, and gold is like iron. Snow, the same as Shui. This Shui scorpion was a human spirit, and he immediately heard the meaning behind Lin Chen's words, and a thin layer of cold sweat broke out on his forehead. Lin, General Lin, where did you hear this poem? General, I forgot, Lin Chen said calmly, but precisely because of these words, Shui Biao was in a state of confusion. It's just that the general in front of him didn't seem to want to talk more about this matter, and instead talked about where Shui Biao's caravan came from. After the conversation, Lin Chen frowned slightly. The White Lotus sect thieves blocked the canals in the Xianping area. According to Shui Biao, the Baili-Sao Canal passing through Xianping is patrolled by the White Lotus Navy and no fleet is allowed to pass through. Does the Kaoyun Yamen not care? General Lin, although the Water Transport Yamen has mobilized a canal protection fleet, the White Lotus sect is powerful. Shui Biao did not say the next words. It's just that the Kaoyun Yamen didn't dare to take action and could only see the White Lotus sect being so unscrupulous. If the Canal Transport Yamen dared to mobilize the Canal Protection Fleet to clean up the White Lotus sect fleet on the Xianping-Yisao Canal, how could it force Shui Biao to go overland? You must know that the cost of traveling by land will increase several times. Even if this batch of goods is delivered to the capital, you will not make much money. Kaoyun Yamen, ha! Lin Chen's eyes flashed with coldness. The news he got from Zhao Min. The White Lotus sect army built a water fort in a ditch of Sao Canal and hoarded hundreds of thousands of stones of grain. This time, Lin Chen understood why the White Lotus sect wanted to shrink its power and stay in Xianping City. In the eyes of outsiders, the White Lotus sect's move was a sign of weakness and was intended to attract the imperial army to come and besiege them. You must know that the losses of the attacking side will definitely be greater than those of the defending side. There is a saying in the art of war, if you are 10, you can surround it, if you are 5, you can attack it. At present, Lin Chen's total number of soldiers and horses is only a little over 40,000. On the other hand, the White Lotus sect has as many as 200,000 combatable soldiers gathered in Xianping City. Look at it this way. As long as they are not fools, the imperial court can only use siege to consume the food and grass in the city. After all, many fortified cities in history were finally defeated because of a shortage of food in the city. However, the White Lotus sect had stored enough food for them in Kaochushui village for several months. What puzzled Lin Chen was why the other party did this. As the saying goes, everything happens for a reason. Lin Chen, who had no idea what the White Lotus sect was going to do, could only take one step at a time. This Shui scorpion is very generous. Lin Chen didn't expect that the box sent by the other party contained gold and silver jewelry worth tens of thousands of taels. This is no small sum of money. Suddenly, Yang Qilang's energetic voice sounded outside the tent. Sir, the White Lotus sect's thief general has been brought here. Come in. Lin Chen gently closed the box containing the money and ordered Yang Ji beside him. Spend 7,000 taels to reward the horses and soldiers, and the rest will go to the nearby area to buy pigs and sheep. Yang Ji was startled when he heard this. He didn't expect that his general had no intention of staying at all. For ordinary soldiers, meeting a general who drank the blood of his soldiers was a stroke of luck. How could a general ever pay for the soldiers' food? When Lin Chen saw that Yang Ji was motionless, he couldn't help but frown and look at him. Yes. When Yang Ji met Lin Chen's deep eyes, his whole body couldn't help but trembled, and he nodded quickly to express that there was no problem. Yang Qilang watched Yang Ji dragging a heavy box away, while he pulled Captain Niu into the military tent. Kneel down. The latter was also very sincere and knelt down directly in front of Lin Chen. Name. Lin Chen glanced lightly at the person in front of him. Niu too. Niu originally thought that the imperial general in front of him would yell at him to kill him. Unexpectedly, the general in front of him had an indifferent attitude, which made him feel a little relieved. At least for now, it seems that the other party has no plans to behead him. Where did you learn that military formation technique? Lin Chen said calmly. Yes, it's our protector's place. Protector, according to Niu Er's explanation. In Xianping City, the White Lotus cult protector selected hundreds of people to learn the military formation mentality. Niu Er was appointed as a school captain just because he learned this military formation. Sir, I was just kidnapped by the thieves of the White Lotus sect. I have no intention of becoming a thief. Niu Er began to scream and cry miserably. How much of the military formation technique do you remember? Recite it one by one. Lin Chen was indifferent to this. Niu Er was stunned. Yang Qilang looked at Niu Er with evil intentions. No, sir, I don't dare to memorize that military formation mentality. Niu Er quickly explained the reason. Why, the Holy Aunt said that we all swore to Wusheng Mother that if we reveal this military formation method, we will die violently. If you don't carry it, I will kill you right now. Yang Qilang whipped out his knife to scare the bully. Carry it, I carry it. Niu Er, who was about to cry but had no tears, had no choice but to open his mouth and start chanting. Wangshi Gongyan. Soldiers are also responsible for state affairs. Lin Chen listened to Niu Er's trembling recitation of the outline of the military formation method. Huang Shigong. Is he the immortal figure who threw his shoes to make things difficult for Zhang Liang 3 times, and then taught Zhang Liang the 3 strategies of Wang Shigong? Niu Er's voice echoed in the military tent. When Lin Chen heard the outline of the military formation recited by the other party, a thoughtful look flashed in his eyes. But don't want to. Niu Er, whose voice suddenly became dry, covered his neck. Yang Qilang noticed something strange about the other party and subconsciously reached out to press on the other party's shoulder. But Niu Er's whole body collapsed on the ground, screaming in pain. Lin Chen looked at Niu Er's miserable state and suddenly stood up and walked to him. Sir, I'm out of breath. Yang Qilang put his finger on Niu Er's pulse, and then said with an ugly expression. Niu Er died right under his nose. Is this the oath Niu Er said before? Could it be that the White Lotus sect really has this kind of long-distance curse method? If this is the case, then Lin Chen will have to evaluate the upper limit of force in this world. But, Lin Chen waved his hand to Yang Qilang to stand further away and let Niu Er spread out. Niu Er's orifices were bleeding and his death was extremely miserable. Lin Chen, who was originally using his internal energy to explore Niu Er's body, his eyes narrowed slightly. Something weird. The internal power of Jiang condensed by the Yuyang heart technique wrapped around the foreign object in Niu Er's heart. Phew, there was a sound of muscle and skin being torn apart, followed by a sharp insect chirp. Lin Chen looked at the strange little insect with colorful spots all over its body. A bit of surprise flashed across his face. It's a GU insect. Yang Qilang looked solemn. GU insect, Lin Chen murmured in a doubtful tone. Yes, sir. This method of driving GU insects is said to be a method from the Southwest chieftain. Yang Qilang was a little frightened when he talked about the origin of this GU insect. After all, this little GU insect can kill a person. Moreover, the Miaozhong GU master's poison methods are extremely difficult to guard against, and even top-notch warriors may fall victim to them accidentally. Among them, the 5 poison sect is the most famous. According to Yang Qilang, these 5 poison sects are demon sects. Aren't these 5 poison sects not involved in the disputes in the Central Plains? Why do they appear among the White Lotus sect thieves? After listening to Yang Qilang's description, Lin Chen's eyes flashed with a thoughtful look. Let's ignore the relationship between the 5 poison sect and the White Lotus sect for the time being. So does the so-called holy ant use GU insects to prevent generals like Niuer from leaking secrets? As the saying goes, death has no proof. This stopped Lin Chen from investigating the origin of the military formation method held by the White Lotus sect. Take him down and bury him. Yes. After Yang Qilang left, Lin Chen sat in the military tent, thoughts emerging in his mind. This time the White Lotus sect rebelled. Everything was weird. For now, regardless of what the White Lotus sect wants to do, let's report this matter to Li Jiao first. Lin Chen said to himself. After all, it's better to let people at the top deal with this kind of thing. At the same time, the Shui family's caravan headed to the capital. Shui Biao recalled the secret conversation between Lin Chen and him, and was still extremely shocked to this day. If that General Lin had lied to him. Shui Biao gritted his teeth as he thought of something. It's nothing more than a matter of hard work. If he succeeds, he might be able to get rid of the Shui family's burden. As a member of the family surnamed Shui, Shui Biao has a very clear view of the current situation of the Shui family. The people of the head of the Shui family excluded him as a side branch. Even if Shui Biao doesn't covet the position of the head of the family at all. On the other hand, the elders of the family treated him as if they were guarding against thieves. And the nominal manager of the Shui family, Aunt Shui, only has the views of a woman. Little do they know that domestic thieves are far more difficult to guard against than foreign thieves. Shui Biao sneered in his heart when he thought of the old people of the Shui family in Jinling embezzling the Shui family's assets. As for Aunt Shui's eldest son, Shui Pan, he is even more of a fool. His notoriety spread throughout Jinling at a young age. If it weren't for the blessing of the ancestors, the Shui family would have declined long ago. No matter how you look at it, the Shui family is a broken ship. In addition, Lin Chen's previous words seemed to have been mentioned accidentally, but to the ears of a smart person like Shui Biao, it had a different flavor. In ancient times, no matter how rich a wealthy businessman is, he is just a fat sheep in the eyes of officials. As the saying goes, the officials who destroy the family will destroy the county magistrate. If Shui Biao had been before, he would have only planned to make some money and separate the Shui family to set up another branch. Now, Shui Biao has a better way. Then, Shui Biao, who hurriedly brought the caravan to the capital, sold the goods at a loss. Shop manager Shui, Yu has taken his leave. Yu Bukchun just wanted to leave Gyeonggi as soon as possible. He discovered that he was at odds with this White Lotus sect thief. In this way, he no longer wanted to follow the Shui family's caravan. Same, Shui Biao also had something on his mind, so he and Yu Bukchun parted ways after saying a few polite words. Along the way, a group of luxury carriages noticed the Shui family caravan and couldn't help but stop and look around. As for Shui Biao's eagerness to return to Akakura to express his attitude to Lin Chen, he didn't delay too much. Who is this? A lazy female voice sounded from within the carriage. Ada, who was waiting on both sides of the carriage, heard the words and respectfully reported back, Princess Maode, that is the caravan of the Shui family in Jiangnan. Shui family. The woman known as Princess Maode couldn't help but chuckle to herself when she heard this. The princess wants her subordinates to stop her. No need, it's just the Shui family, not worthy of my princess's attention. The interior of this frame is luxurious and elegant. The knitted velvet blanket lying under Zhao Min alone was worth thousands of gold. There is also the tea table made of pineapple flowers and trees, and the gilt-fumed cauldron placed on the table is dyed with ambergris. The Saidong Chamber of Commerce is rich enough to rival the country, and this statement is not groundless. Not only that, this bicycle frame is also made by skilled craftsmen, and the tea in the teacup in front of Zhao Min does not shake at all. Go directly to Akang. I want to see General Lin. Zhao Min ordered, with a playful smile flashing between his eyelids. 30 miles outside Xianping City. Lin Chen looked at the deserted countryside where the White Lotus cult thieves had fortified the walls, his expression unchanged. Set up camp. During this period, the Xianping city in front of us had its walls raised by the White Lotus sect thieves, and countless defense equipment was piled up. Now Xianping is like a curled-up hedgehog. Nature. Lin Chen did not choose to get close to Xianping city, but faced it 30 miles away from the other side. Sir, that shopkeeper Shui is here. At night, Lin Chen was reading a bamboo scroll and listened to the report from the bodyguard. Please. When Lin Chen heard this, the corner of his mouth curled up into a slight smile. He originally thought that Shui Scorpion would hesitate for a few more days. General Lin, just looking at Shui Biao, who was covered in dust, he was quite anxious to come all the way. Shop manager Shui, what do you think about the last discussion? A certain family is willing to listen to the general's orders. Good. When Lin Chen saw what Shui Biao said, he felt reassured. If Xianping city is captured, I will ask for credit from your majesty, shopkeeper Shui. After Lin Chen made the conditions, Shui Biao hurriedly left the military camp again, planning to bypass Xianping and go all the way south. The next day, a secret message from Lin Chen was delivered to Li Jiao immediately. Snapped. After Li Jiao read it, the secret folded into pieces and scattered on the ground. Military formation method. Li Jiao's eyes seemed to be spitting fire. Throughout the ages, there have been many schools of various military formation methods. It is said that as long as a general with extraordinary talent can understand the unique military formation method on his own. Therefore, there are a large number of military formation method inheritance among the people. It's just that Li Tang is so powerful now that no one dares to show off with something that can rob a family and exterminate a clan. Logically speaking, ordinary people cannot have access to this military formation method. However, Lin Chen said in his secret speech that the White Lotus sect had recently inherited the military formation method from unknown sources. This is tantamount to provoking Li Jiao's bottom line. Summon Shangguan's daughter Shi into the palace. Soon, Shangguan Wanner came to the imperial study room. As Shangguan Wanner, who grew up with Li Jiao, she knew the general situation when she saw the other person's face. There must be something that made Li Jiao furious. Really, when Shangguan Wanner learned that the White Lotus sect had obtained the military formation method, a hint of surprise flashed through her beautiful eyes. Who is secretly funding the White Lotus sect to cause trouble? Wanner, Jubian sent a letter saying that the grassland and the outside of the pass have been affected by disasters. They are afraid of detaining the pass in the second half of the year and asking for support from the imperial court. Shangguan Wanner was even more shocked when she heard about such a secret event. This year has been an eventful year. Now that there are still White Lotus sect thieves in Gyeonggi making trouble, is the border still unstable? Think of this. Shangguan Wanner looked at Li Jiao with a hint of distress in her eyes. She knew exactly how much burden the thin body in front of her was bearing every day. But, Li Jiao still had a smile on his face when he thought of the reorganized Beijing camp. A few days ago, I took advantage of the topic and gave a good rap to Li Tang Wuxun, headed by Niu Jizong. Let them know that what Emperor Li Tang said in this court is still valid. When the court meeting was over, Niu Jizong wrote a letter expressing his loyalty. After all, from a certain perspective, the Li Tang dynasty and these martial nobles are grasshoppers on a rope. If Lin Chen delays for another month, I can use all the troops from the capital to defeat these bandits. When Li Jiao talked about this, his tone was inevitably very exciting. Is it really so? Shangguan Wanner thought of the Minister of War, and there was a hint of haze in the depths of her eyes. She got a tip. It is said that these Jiao brothers may have disloyal intentions. However, this secret report was unfounded and Shangguan Wanner did not show it to Li Jiao. After all, using such rumors to attack the ministers of the DPRK will inevitably make other ministers criticize themselves. I didn't expect that Hai Dafu would choose a talent for me. Suddenly, Li Zhao's smiling eyes fell on Shangguan Wanner. Shangguan Wanner naturally knew who the talent Li Zhao was talking about was. It was Lin Chen. The other party led the newly recruited soldiers to defeat tens of thousands of the White Lotus sect's elite army, forcing the White Lotus sect to gather its troops and gather in Xianping City. Shangguan Wanner's earlobes turned red as she thought of something, and she said angrily, "Your Majesty is joking about something like this again. Wanner, what do you think of Lin Chen coming here in triumph and letting him be my servant? The so-called Chamberlain is nothing more than a trusted person around the Emperor. This status is not comparable to the functions of an official of several grades." But Shangguan Wanner was a little surprised when she heard what Li Zhao said. "Your Majesty, Lin Chen is a smart man. If we get along with you for a long time, you may discover your true identity." When Li Zhao heard this, he didn't take it seriously. "Wanner, you said that Lin Chen is a smart man, he should know what to say and what not to say." Seeing Li Zhao's firm attitude, Shangguan Wanner stopped trying to persuade him. "I just sighed in my heart. Nowadays, there are too few people that Li Zhao can use. Don't come around to grab others' use." Or, Lin Chen's ability was so outstanding that it even made Li Zhao a little jealous. At the same time, Guardian Zhao, why not let a certain family lead the brothers out of the city to attack the imperial army at night? The man who was called Protector Zhao had neither sadness nor joy in his expression. Only the hand holding the teacup tightly showed that he was not at peace with himself. Because this brother of Protector Zhao died in the hands of the imperial army. Brother Protector Zhao was promoted to the position of protector by the leader at a young age. Yes, this Protector Zhao's brother was the young general of the White Lotus sect who was picked up by Yang Zhejiang that day. No, before Protector Zhao could speak, another protector present said flatly, "The leader strictly ordered us to stick to Xianping and not to go out to fight outside the city." Of course, this protector also knew that Protector Zhao's younger brother died in the hands of officers and soldiers, so he comforted him by saying, "In the future, Protector Zhao will definitely have the opportunity to avenge his brother." The implication: this is not the time. When Protector Zhao heard this, his eyes turned cold and he looked at the other party with murderous intent. But after looking at each other for a moment, Protector Zhao stopped, slapped the cup on the table, stood up and left without saying a word. "We have the method of practicing military formation, so why should we be afraid of officers and soldiers? It's not easy to lead officers and soldiers, so we'd better be careful." In that hall, there were still arguments. As for Lin Chen, who was talked about by the senior officials of the White Lotus sect in Xianping City, he had been leading his personal guards around the Sao Canal for the past 2 days. Interesting to say, this canal was dug by the emperor of the previous dynasty at the expense of people's efforts. For this reason, he wasted people and money, and caused chaos in the world, thus losing the world. Lin Chen looked at the canal in front of him and couldn't help but complain in his heart. Yes, because the Sui dynasty emperor who dug this canal was Lin Chen's father. So Lin Chen looked at the canal about 40 meters wide in front of him, and the expression on his face was quite wonderful. If it wasn't for my cheap man's misbehavior, maybe Li Zhao's seat should be taken by him. After finishing his random thoughts, Lin Chen ordered Yang Wulong to write down the topography of this section of the canal. "Sir, the White Lotus Navy is here. Just look at the distance of the canal, and a small windsurfing boat is coming with its sails and oars." Whoosh! Several hundred meters away, scattered arrows were shot towards Lin Chen. Ah! Lin Chen sucked in the arrow that was about to fall into the water out of thin air. Internal energy swept through him, and several arrows fell into Lin Chen's hands. He is not in a good mood today. So, call out. The arrows that were reflected back at several times the speed hit the White Lotus priests on the sailboat and knocked them off their feet. General's sharpshooting. Yang Wulong looked at Lin Chen's move and couldn't help but applaud him. If you are not a first-rate warrior, you will never be able to do this move. Yang Wulong didn't expect Lin Chen, who was usually a quiet person, to have such a level of martial arts. Walk. Lin Chen saw that the windsurfing boat did not dare to approach, so he rowed away from this section of the canal. The other side, there is Langtu Mountain on the boundary between Akang and Xianping. This mountain covers an area of about tens of kilometers. After the flood, a group of horse traders and horse traders turned into bandits. Report, there is a group of people coming down from Dawang Mountain, about 50 people, it looks like it is the carriage of the official lady. Miss Guanwan. In Lengtu village, dozens of shirtless men who were drinking and having fun laughed happily when they heard this. The leader, the rugged man with thick arms, couldn't help but pat the young man next to him on the shoulder. Little brother, you haven't married yet at your age, how about your uncle going down the mountain and snatching that official lady as your wife? The young man looked upright, with a sweat scarf tied on his forehead. In response to his uncle's joke, he just took a sip of wine and said loudly, "Uncle, I can't stay here for only a few days. Is it possible that I will become a bandit? It's not bad to be a bandit. At least you can make more money than selling horses." A man with a yellow beard muttered in a low voice. If the government and army suppress the bandits, this business without capital will turn into a beheading business. The young man was unmoved. Finished. The big men in the hall have calmed down a bit and are no longer as excited as they were just now. I can tell. Among this group of people, this young man's words carry considerable weight. This young man is none other than Shi. His last name is Shu. He was originally from Zhongnan. He had a tendency to fight against injustices since he was a child. His parents died and he grew up with his uncle. When I got older, I went to the frontier with my uncle to sell horses. At the frontier, Shishu met a white-bearded veteran and learned some martial arts from him. But don't want to. Shishu relied on the martial arts skills taught by veterans to practice to the top level of a second-rate martial artist. Along the way of horse trading, Shishu relied on his own skills to kill countless bandits and strongmen. Therefore, this group of horse traders mostly admired him. It's just that God doesn't fulfill people's wishes. The fine horses that Shishu and others planned to bring to the capital for sale encountered a flood, and the horses died cleanly. The group had no savings and were extremely hungry and thirsty. But he didn't want to pass by Lengtu Mountain, and a group of bandits came to block the way. This group of bandits number 180 is not enough for Shishu to deal with alone. With nowhere to go, Shishu and others killed the original leader of the cottage and came to occupy the magpie's nest. Certainly, this is just a desperate tactic. Naturally, Shishu didn't want to hang out in this mountain for the rest of his life. At the moment, he and his uncle's plan is to wait for the floods to subside and then go to the capital to find a living. No idea. At this time, a bandit ran into the lobby in a panic. "Chief," the third master ordered his men and horses to go down the mountain to rob the road. Third boss. Everyone in the hall looked at each other in shock after hearing this. Shishu only killed the leader that day. Seeing Shishu's bravery, the others immediately chose to surrender. Shishu did not intend to stay here for a long time, so he did not reprimand the other leaders and allowed them to continue to stay in the village. "Uncle, I'll go down the mountain and have a look." When Shishu heard the news, he couldn't help but frown. He was worried that if he really robbed the official lady, he might cause the local government to send troops to suppress the bandits. "Come on, let's go down the mountain and have a look." When the uncle heard what Shishu said, he was unambiguous. Walk. Just looking at the mountain road, there was a group of bandits holding tattered weapons. The leading ones were quite well dressed and were wearing leather armor. The short, fat man in the lead looked at the convoy in front of him greedily and couldn't help but swallow his saliva. After arriving on Shisho Mountain, they were not allowed to go down the mountain to plunder villages. If there wasn't enough food in the village, these bandits would have made a scene long ago. Now that a windfall finally came through, the three bosses didn't even say hello, they just ordered them all and went down the mountain. "Hey, I opened this road and planted this tree." The third boss, who had a naughty smile on his face, raised the machete in his hand angrily. "Ada, what's the matter?" Zhao Min frowned and asked when he heard the noise outside. "But don't want to." When the third master heard this woman's voice that sounded like fairy music, his heart suddenly agitated. During this time, he was also frustrated. Now just listening to this woman's voice makes him a little distracted. There must be a fairy-like beauty in the frame. "Princess, a bunch of fools are blocking the road." Ada didn't even look at the bandits. Awful. Unexpectedly, the third master's face became angry when the other party didn't take his own people seriously at all. "Hey, let me show you what Grandpa is capable of." With that said, the three masters took up the sword and invited a fight. Seeing that the other party did not know whether to live or die, Ada stopped the other brothers who wanted to take action. A person like this is not worth their while. You go, Ada said to the man holding the bow. These 8 people with bows are the best soldiers in the army that Zhao Min gathered under his command. They are very good at shooting and can be said to be able to shoot through the enemy with 100 steps. Yes, the big archer also looked down upon the fat bandit, so he put down his bow and arrows, took out a spear and stepped forward. The third master looked at the other party's muscles. Although the smile was gone from his face, he was cheered up in his heart. Although he had done a lot of killings like those who looked after homes and courtyards, he still had to be careful when dealing with them. Hua! The third master rushed over with a strange scream, holding a big sword high, looking like something was amiss. But don't want to. In the eyes of archers, these moves are like children playing, without any rules. I saw the spear in the archer's hand tilted downwards, and he was about to disembowel the 3 masters. As for the slashing sword, its diameter was swung away by the gun body. The third master, whose mouth was numb, was horrified. He can't even get past the opponent's moves. Although a certain family is good at using arrows, they also learned their spear skills from coach Jingying Lin. The archer sneered. Bitter. The third leader was completely discouraged. I thought I was a fat sheep, but I didn't want to be a ruthless person. Young boys, come together. At this time, the third leader of the family didn't care about the morality of the world, so he started to greet his subordinates. These minions can't see the difference between the third master and the archer. They just think that since there are more people on my side, I have the advantage. Only. Upon seeing this, the royal guards drew their swords and joined the battle. Kill. In just an instant, this disorganized group of bandits left behind more than 20 corpses. The leaders who were going down the mountain with the third master suddenly felt a gust of wind and wanted to hide. But he didn't expect it. A cold feeling came into his throat, and then his eyesight went dark. I just saw that these people had an arrow stuck in their throats, and the arrow feathers trembled slightly. This time, I finally realized that I had bumped into the third boss on the iron plate, so I didn't care about the minions fighting, so I turned around and ran away. Want to run. When the archer saw this, he didn't pursue him. He just returned to his horse, drew his bow and knocked an arrow. Call out, you thief, how dare you stab someone in the back. The loud shout resounded through the forest. Shishu, holding an eyebrow-level whistle stick, rushed out from the forest and knocked away the fatal arrow with one blow. Head, save me, the third leader shouted with joy, as if he saw a savior. Unexpectedly, another cold arrow flew towards him. A double shot. Seeing this kind of skill, Shishu couldn't help but be stunned, so that his hand movements slowed down. The third master was unlucky. He was shot through by an arrow and fell to the ground without moving. Shishu's appearance actually made Ada interested. This person turned out to be a second-rate warrior. Sir, there is someone fighting in front. Lin Chen heard what the sentry said and asked what the name of this place was. Langtu Mountain. This name doesn't sound like a peaceful place. Let's go over and have a look. Master. The more Shishu fought with the man dressed as a monk in front of him, the more frightened he became. Because the monk in front of him was called Asan by that person. And the 8 archers who held the battle for Asan were definitely not ordinary people at first glance. We need to win quickly. When Shishu was fighting with his opponent, he quickly thought of countermeasures in his mind. At the moment, it is absolutely impossible for him and others to fight head-on with the other party, the only way is to rush out. Take my move. The whistle stick in Shishu's hand hit Tiantian's spirit cap with a sound of breaking through the air. Seeing this, Asan was unmoved and struck Shishu in the heart with a palm. If this happens, the two of them will die together. However, Shishu did not dodge or evade, as if this desperate fighting style was common for him. But Asan didn't want to trade his life with the lunatic in front of him, so he immediately stopped his attack and blocked the blow. Click. There was a crisp bone crack. Asan quickly took a few steps back, covering his arms with a gloomy expression. Fire the arrow. Ada frowned when he saw that his third brother was at a disadvantage. Some horse dealers who had good relations with Shishu were shot dead. Uncle. Shishu's expression turned ferocious as he looked at his uncle, who was moving left and right, struggling to avoid the arrows. For Shishu, the uncle who raised him is no less gracious than his parents. Little brother, please leave. Seeing that he had encountered a tough situation today, the uncle said miserably to the big man Shishu. Boring. In that frame, Zhao Min curled his lips slightly when he saw this show of affection between uncle and nephew. Just at this time, suddenly I heard the sound of horse hooves on the mountain road. Ada heard the sound and waved his hand as a warning. Shishu and his uncle were lucky to have saved their lives. I saw about 30 cavalrymen emerging from the mountain road, each of them fully equipped with armor and awe-inspiring. Officers and soldiers of the imperial court. Ada looked at the costumes of this group of cavalry and felt a little relieved. He thought it was the helpers of these bandits coming. Who are you? Why are you fighting here? Yang Wulong stepped forward and asked. This is the frame of Princess Maode. The people dying in front of you are bandits. Lin Chen heard this slightly familiar voice and immediately rode over. Really? Ada's expression changed slightly when he saw Lin Chen's iconic ghost face. I didn't expect to meet each other here. The princess is Lin Chenjia. Zhao Min, who was still listless, suddenly became interested. Let him come to the carriage of this princess to say hello. Hearing this, Ada bit his head and shouted to Lin Chen. General Lin, in the car is Princess Damao, the eldest daughter of Prince Duan. Why don't you step forward and salute? Princess Damao. Lin Chen's thoughts began to flow when he heard the other party talking about this title. After considering that the so-called King Duan is called Zhaoji, it is not surprising that the other party would give his daughter this title. I've met Princess Damao. Lin Chen's attitude was dull, far from flattering and distant. General Lin. Before Zhao Min could say anything, Ada looked at Lin Chen with unkind eyes. You're being rude. I am a military attaché of the imperial court, why should I salute the heir of the feudal prince? What Lin Chen said was correct. Good. Never thought about it. A charming and naughty voice sounded from within the carriage. My princess has heard from my eldest brother that General Lin is an interesting person. Only when I saw him today did I know that what my eldest brother said was true. Eldest brother. When Lin Chen heard what the so-called Princess Damao said, his expression became strange. Could it be that Princess Damao is Zhao Min? Although this was Lin Chen's guess. But his intuition told him that the possibility of the princess in front of him being Zhao Min was as high as 90%. What is Zhao Min doing here? Isn't she staying in the capital? Lin Chen didn't know what Zhao Min wanted to do, so he looked at the scene first. Especially the two men who are still alive. Oh, Lin Chen's sixth senses swept over that upright young man. He turned out to be a peak second-rate warrior. No wonder he was able to hold on for so long and still let Ah San suffer a loss. Who are you? Shishu didn't expect that the ghost-faced general in front of him would ask him a question. The name of a certain family is Shishu, and this is a certain uncle. Shishu, that desperate Saburo. Lin Chen's eyes flashed with surprise, and he continued to ask, are you two bandits? When Shishu heard this, he immediately explained. He said that he and his uncle were just staying in the village temporarily. This group of bandits just now called you the leader. Ah San sneered after hearing Shishu's words. In that case, are you willing to join the army? What everyone present did not expect was that after Lin Chen was silent for a moment, he opened his mouth with words of solicitation. Shishu didn't expect it either. I originally thought that I and my uncle were dead, but I didn't expect that things could turn around. Please take me in, General. Shishu was also a smart man. At the hint from his uncle's eyes, he bowed his head directly. General Lin, recruiting bandits privately is a serious crime. At this time, a playful chuckle sounded from the carriage. The princess also heard it. These two people said that they were just horse traders. Lin Chen remained unmoved. This desperate Saburo Shishu can be regarded as a hero in water margin. There is a poem that says, by looking on, one can distinguish between right and wrong, and by helping each other, one can know the distant and the close. For Lin Chen, who is currently short of talents, Shishu is worth recruiting. Finished. Lin Chen originally thought that Zhao Min would continue to struggle with this matter, but he didn't want the other party to stop talking. In this case, I want to go to Akakura. Zhao Min, who was pretending to be scared, said timidly, I'm afraid I'll encounter bandits again, so I'll trouble General Lin to escort us. When Lin Chen heard this, he couldn't help but twitch the corners of his mouth. With Zhao Min's men like Ada and the accompanying royal guards, what kind of bandit could hurt her? What is Zhao Min planning? Lin Chen couldn't help but feel a little vigilant in his heart. After all, the other party is Zhao Min, a bad woman who can control Zhang Wuji to death in the book. However, what surprised Lin Chen was that Zhao Min didn't see any monsters on the way to Akang. On the other hand, we really encountered several waves of bandits along the way. Lin Chen's eyes turned cold as he looked at these so-called bandits in ragged clothes and holding bamboo poles and hoes in their hands. This is the area under the jurisdiction of Akakura County. With so many disaster victims in the territory turning into bandits, what is the Akakura County magistrate doing? Gather them and take them all to Akakura. Lin Chen issued an order that was quite confusing to his subordinates. Sir, these are bandits. Have you ever seen a bandit with a child? Lin Chen's tone was chilling. I understand the humble position. When the guards present heard this, a cold sweat broke out on their backs. Only Yang Wulong and Shi Shu, who had nominally joined Lin Chen, had their eyes bright. In Shi Shu's view, the ghost-faced general in front of him was, from a certain perspective, a good man. However, the food Lin Chen brought with him was not enough to supply these refugees. Lin Chen couldn't help but look at Zhao Min's bicycle frame. Little did he know that there was a pair of bright and cunning eyes under the curtain of the carriage, watching his joke. Regarding the arrival of Princess Mayode, the eldest daughter of Prince Duan, all the officials in Akang County became excited. I have met Princess Mayode. The magistrate of Chikang County led his yamen team 20 miles out of the county to greet the driver. Lin Chen looked at the Akakura officials present with coldness in his eyes. The magistrate of Akang County shivered unconsciously, thinking that he had been fighting for too long with his concubine last night, which made him feel a little weak. Apparently, I have to stop drinking during this time. The magistrate of Chikang County, who was thinking in his mind, was also looking at Lin Chen and other generals. These people don't look like Princess Mayode's bodyguards, do they? But the magistrate of Akang County raised his head and saw hundreds of hungry people in ragged clothes behind the carriage, and his expression changed slightly. But he pretended to be shocked and angry and scolded these hungry people. You know this is the princess's car, aren't you afraid of bumping into the noble? With that said, the magistrate of Chikang County called on his servants to disperse the hungry people. When the Chikang County government officials heard the sound, they came out one by one carrying water and fire sticks, and surrounded the hungry people with evil expressions on their faces. When Lin Chen saw this, the corner of his mouth under the mask curled up with a touch of sarcasm, and then he asked knowingly. Are you the magistrate of Akakura County? Who are you? The magistrate of Chikang County looked at Lin Chen with a look in his eyes. A certain Lin Chenjia. Lin Chen bowed his hands towards the other party nonchalantly. But don't want to. After hearing Lin Chen's self-introduction, the Akang County magistrate took a different stance. It turns out to be General Lin. My officer is Song Jia, the magistrate of Chikang County. I have admired him for a long time. The relationship between civil and military affairs has not been good since ancient times. Civil servants think that warriors are vulgar, while military officers think that they are useless and are just scholars. Although Lin Chen had a much higher official rank than him, the magistrate of Akang County did not have to give him this face. Only, when Lin Chen saw the other party like this, his eyes became deeper. The guy in front of me seems to be a little delayed in news. Not long ago, Li Zhao issued a decree allowing Lin Chen to mobilize the authority of Gyeonggi Prefecture and county officials. This includes dismissal. Only, Lin Chen has no intention of alerting the enemy for the time being. He wanted to see what other secrets there were in Akakura County that had not yet been revealed. County Magistrate Song. Hungry people can be seen everywhere in Chikang County. You, the county magistrate, have neglected your duties. Lin Chen said something pointedly. Never thought about it. When Song Jia heard this, he became a little angry and threw up his sleeves angrily. General Lin, you are a military officer. Do you know how to calm the people better than me? Lin Chen was noncommittal and just glanced at the hungry people. At this time, Song Jia's face turned ugly. Snort. Song Jia ignored Lin Chen and only respectfully received Princess Mayode's car as it drove towards the county town. Didn't wait for the other party to go far. Dog officer. Yang Qilang cursed in a low voice. I don't care whether the people under my rule live or die, I only know how to flatter the superiors and bully the subordinates. Yang Wulong echoed. General, should we follow? After Shi Shu was recruited by Lin Chen, she also joined the personal guard. Unexpectedly, Shi Shu, who had transformed from a bandit leader to an official of the imperial court, was still a little uncomfortable with it. Enter the city. Regarding Song Jia's cold treatment, Lin Chen didn't have much trouble in his heart. Walk. Follow up. The scenery in Akakura Castle is withered. Not only were there few shops open on the streets, but there were only a large number of hungry people huddled on the streets. The more Lin Chen looked, the more obvious the coldness in his eyes became. He learned this from the mouths of these hungry people. The magistrate of Akang County has not opened a warehouse for disaster relief since the flood occurred. Instead, they united with many local Akakura gentry and landlords to annex the property of the affected people. The county magistrate and the wealthy gentry added 2 to 1 to make 5, and the people's property was divided between 30 and 70. Shi Shu. Lin Chen looked at the miserable situation in the streets and called out Shi Shu's name. Grown-ups, it would have been useful for you and your uncle to pretend to be foreign businessmen and collect evidence of the Akang County magistrate's corruption and violation of the law. Clear, Shi Shu and his uncle had just been recruited by Lin Chen, and they still had the aura of being listed, so they were perfect for this job. Song Jia placed Zhao Min and his party in the post house and served them delicious food and drinks. Lin Chen and others arrived later. General Lin, the princess invites you. At this time, Ada came over expressionlessly to convey the order from his princess. When Lin Chen heard this, he pretended that he was not familiar with Zhao Min and did not want to have too many relationships with the royal family's children, so he politely declined. But don't want to. The princess said that she spread a lot of food to the hungry people on behalf of General Lin. In that case, I'm going to visit Princess Mayode. Really, Lin Chen knew that Zhao Min wanted to talk about this matter. But that's fine. The most difficult thing to repay is a favor from a bad woman like Zhao Min. If there hadn't been so many people at that time, Lin Chen's system backpack would have contained enough food for the hungry people. The post house has been cleaned up by attendant Zhao Min. The gorgeous carpets on the floor, and the subtle incense in the house. General Lin, I didn't expect that asking you to meet me would be so difficult. The charming woman dressed in the palace attire of a princess sat on the side of the tea table. Her eyes were like water, and her slender waist, which could be grasped, set off the mountains with an open mind. Although Lin Chen had experienced the baptism of beautiful female anchors on modern short video platforms, when he saw Zhao Min now, he was still shocked. No wonder someone like Zhang Wuji would be severely manipulated by this bad woman. Maybe the other party is still enjoying it. I've met the princess. Lin Chen was still pretending, as if he didn't recognize Zhao Min. Unexpectedly, when Zhao Min saw Lin Chen like this, he raised his sleeves to cover his mouth and chuckled. Call out. Lin Chen's eyes narrowed slightly and he clasped his fingers in front of him. This is a phoenix hairpin, originally used to fix Zhao Min's dignified bun. I saw waterfalls of black hair that had lost the restraints of hairpins, falling from both sides of Zhao Min's shoulders, and her hair was as long as her waist. Listen to Zhao Min speak in a lazy and boring voice. General Lin's acting skills are really poor. He is not as good as Zhao Ming, the eldest son of Prince Duan, who has been starring in this county for more than 10 years. Lin Chen raised his eyebrows slightly when he heard this. Then the Japanese princess forgot to wear the jade pendant that can shield the 6 senses when she went out. As an acquired warrior, General Lin still can't recognize my identity. Zhao Min pretended to be distressed. This is the identity that I have played for more than 10 years, General Lin. Would you be in trouble if General Lin revealed it? If that's the case, then let's keep silent, right? Zhao Min, who looked at Lin Chen with a smile, talked about the murder and silence in front of the real owner. Lin Chen was indifferent to this. He and Zhao Min were the only 2 people in this room. Zhao Min's aura was at the level of a second-rate warrior, and it was easy for Lin Chen to capture him. Not to mention, Zhao Min and Zhao Ji behind the scenes could not bear the charge of Princess Duan Wang for attacking and killing the imperial military attaché Lin Chenjia. Seeing this, Zhao Min curled his lips in boredom. Have to say, Zhao Min has an inexplicable magical power about her, and there is a coquettishness in her behavior. Does it look good? Lin Chen listened to Zhao Min's slightly cold words and looked away without leaving any trace. If it were another man to be so presumptuous in front of him. Zhao Min had already chopped the opponent into pieces and fed them to the dogs. But now this guy is an acquired warrior at a young age. I don't know how the other party practices. Could it be that he started practicing martial arts in his mother's womb? Certainly. It's also possible that the other person just sounds young, but is actually an old monster. But, no matter how Zhao Min slandered Lin Chen in her heart, she had to win over him. Because Zhao Min can't give up on the eldest son of King Duan, Zhao Ming. In order to make Lin Chen shut up about this matter, Zhao Min went to all lengths. However, judging from the intelligence collected by Zhao Min knew that Lin Chenjia in front of him was a guard of the prince's mansion, but he knew nothing about the rest. Don't be greedy for money, act vigorously and resolutely, and have outstanding abilities. For such a person, Zhao Min couldn't help but want to recruit him into his employ. Unfortunately, Lin Chenjia seemed to be the emperor's man. As for the level of loyalty, although Zhao Min's face was cold, he was excited in his heart. He is a man after all. When Lin Chen saw that Zhao Min was not pretending, he was not interested in continuing to act. So, should I call you Princess Maode or Zhao Ming? My princess's name is Zhao Min. Zhao Min raised his little head slightly and chuckled. When Lin Chen heard this, he looked at the other party thoughtfully. Zhao Ji, the king of this world, wanted to show that he was not a threat in front of Emperor Li Tang. He followed the path of Prince Xiangui. Therefore, King Duan had many concubines, and his descendants were even more prosperous. Lin Chen didn't understand why Zhao Min had to dress up as a man and pretend to be Zhao Ming. The eldest son, Lin Chen, who had some palace battle plot flashing through his mind, picked up the hot tea on the tea table and took a sip. Certainly, the tea was wrapped in Lin Chen's inner strength during the whole process and evaporated directly. He had suffered losses at the hands of Zhao Min before, but now he was on guard. Princess Maode, I have no intention of getting involved in Prince Duan's family affairs. The implication is that Lin Chen will not tell anyone about Zhao Min's vest. If the new emperor asks about this matter, will General Lin say anything? Zhao Min suddenly stared at Lin Chen and spoke word by word. When Lin Chen heard this, his expression under the mask was particularly wonderful. Thanks to the mask, Zhao Min couldn't see. Maybe, the situation between Li Zhao and you, Zhao Min, is very similar. If Li Zhao knew about it, he might even come to you to exchange experiences. Certainly, Lin Chen just cursed in his heart, but pretended to be serious and did not answer. Seeing this, Zhao Min already had the answer in his heart. Then, don't blame her for being cruel. ... Little brother, are you very unfamiliar? Shishu and his uncle dressed up as down-and-out businessmen and originally planned to find evidence of Songjia's crime from hungry people on the streets. But don't want to. Before Shishu could choose a target, I saw a man in ragged clothes but with 3 bags hanging on his body, pulling Shishu to talk. My uncle and nephew. Uncle Shishu spoke the words he had prepared long ago. The man with 3 bags hanging on his body couldn't help but sigh when he heard this. After all, we are all miserable people. God is not discerning. Those corrupt officials enjoy a good life, but on the other hand, good people like us end up starving to death. The 3-bag man said angrily, but Shishu and his uncle looked at each other with a trace of surprise in their eyes. If you say such words in front of the two of you, aren't you afraid of being arrested by the Akang County government officials? To be honest, this brother, little brother. This man in a sack explains why. Now starving to death is death, why not give it a try? The man with a bag asked tentatively. When Shishu heard this, there was a look of surprise on his face. Unexpectedly, there were unexpected gains from this trip. Brother, please speak frankly. Of course my uncle and nephew don't want to starve to death. Uncle Shishu spoke, with a hint of gangsterism in his words. After all, they had been in the mountains for a long time and had become contaminated. Really, when the man with a cloth bag heard this, he was overjoyed. He had just seen Shishu and his uncle and thought they were good people, and now they just happened to be involved. Boy, have you ever heard of the Beggar clan? The man in a sack lowered his voice and said mysteriously. Beggars. Lin Chen walked out of the post house with a dark face. If you look closely, there is a bloody mark on the face that was originally covered by the mask. His left hand was hidden in his sleeve and he didn't want to show it. This Zhao Min is really a crazy woman. Thinking of how the other party risked his life in order to take off his mask. If Lin Chen had been slower to withdraw his attacks, Zhao Min would have died. But this also allowed Zhao Min to succeed and successfully take off Lin Chen's mask. This is how this bloodstain was left. Just when Lin Chen was angry, Zhao Min grabbed his left hand and bit it hard. As an acquired warrior, Lin Chen's skin was hard to be damaged by arrows. Even if Zhao Min is a second-rate warrior, he only needs to cover up his inner strength and he will not be hurt. Lin Chen looked at the bite mark on the back of his hand, and the corners of his mouth twitched unnoticeably. Zhao Min's tiger teeth are really sharp. Nature. Lin Chen was bitten and was so angry that he gave Zhao Min a good lesson. I think the other party has not dared to sit on a chair or lie down to sleep in the past 2 days. Indeed, in the post house, there was a slight inhalation sound from the room where Zhao Min was sitting. Zhao Min reached out and touched his buttocks behind him. Hiss. Zhao Min, who didn't expect Lin Chen to use such brutal force, was also angry that he bit down with less force. After taking some medicine, I felt that the burning pain dissipated a little. But even so, Zhao Min did not dare to sit down. At the same time, Shishu and his uncle got the big news and came back to report to Lin Chen. Beggar's Gang. A strange color flashed in Lin Chen's eyes. This Beggar Gang was founded by Hong Qigong. Shishu looked confused when he heard this. Who is this Hong Qigong? He hadn't heard of it. Seeing this, Lin Chen told Shishu not to pay attention and continue. 700 Beggar Gang disciples have gathered in the town of Akang County. They plan to attack the granary tonight and distribute the stolen food to the hungry people. Oh, Lin Chen didn't expect these Beggar Clan disciples to be so bold. In the martial arts world, the Beggar Clan is the sect with the largest number of people. Beggars can be seen everywhere. Only, the Beggar Gang is not what ordinary people imagine, relying entirely on begging for a living. There are many scammers and swindlers, and there are also guys who call themselves beggars. At the same time, the Beggar Gang not only consists of beggars who are so poor that they only have broken bowls, but also have extremely high status, and the beggars under them offer pull heads every day. These club heads are often richer than ordinary wealthy businessmen. Therefore, several factions have long been separated within the Beggar Clan. Just like what Shishu said, this Beggar Clan should behave in a much more correct manner. Be classified as righteous in the world. Today, these Beggar Gang members in Akakura County are members of the Butai sect. But what Lin Chen didn't understand was, why do the Budai Beggar Clan disciples gather near Gyeonggi Province? Isn't this disciple of the Beggar Clan most taboo about dealing with the government? The man also said that the leader of their Beggar Clan will arrive in Gyeonggi Province in the near future. Gang Leader. Chapter 71. It's dry and dry, be careful with the candles. Big ghosts and little ghosts are sitting in a row, everything is fine. The sound of a watchman passing by was heard outside the door of the post house. But on both sides of the dim Akang County streets, there were hundreds of figures gathered outside the county government granary. Brothers, I really saw you right. The three-bag man looked at Shishu and his uncle who had smeared a handful of potash on their faces, and were overjoyed. Originally, he didn't get a reply during the day, and he was worried that the other party would file a lawsuit. When Shishu heard what the other party said, he couldn't help but become more serious and lowered his voice. My uncle and I came here for the hungry people of Akang County. So do we. The members of the Budai Beggar Clan who gathered around him echoed. Shishu looked around, feeling secretly frightened. During the day, he still didn't believe the three-bag man who said there were 700 to 800 Beggar Gang disciples in Akang County. But when I see you tonight, it's just a lot more. We'll take action when the patrol officer passes by. The three-bag man seemed to be familiar with the situation in Akakura County and reminded Shishu and the others. Master Bag, we can agree that this trip is only to get food and save the people. Shishu was afraid that the other party was trying to capture Akang County in the name of grabbing food. If that's the case, don't blame him and his uncle for taking action first. Again, of course, The three-bag man looked serious, and it didn't look like he was trying to fool Shishu. As soon as these words came out, Shishu's eyes flashed with surprise. Do as the other person said. The rules that the disciples of the Budai beggar clan must learn when joining the gang is that a man must behave upright and sit upright. Very interesting. Shishuda followed his uncle around the world when he was a child. He was used to seeing martial arts forces who claimed to be upright and talked about benevolence and morality, but in fact, men were stealing and women were being prostituted behind their backs. Then I thought about the surprised tone in my general's voice when he asked the leader of the Bag Beggar clan today if his name was Chao Feng. Shishu couldn't help but walk to the owner of the three bags and asked in a low voice. May I ask Master Bag, is the leader of the Bag Beggar clan now the hero Chao Feng from North Murong Peak and South Murong Zhang? Do you also know the name of our gang leader? Shishu suddenly realized. It turned out to be the hero Chao Feng, who had an excellent reputation in the world. Even Shishu had heard that Chao Feng was above board and upright, and he was heroic and righteous. A certain family has heard the name of Daxia Chao mentioned many times by people in the world, and they only wish they had never met him. Shishu pretends to be surprised and admires Chao Feng. Seeing Shishu like this, the three-bag owner looked like he was used to it. In this world, there are many people in the martial arts world who highly admire their leader Chao. The three-bag owner felt happy and became closer to Shishu. Brother Shi, you don't know, our gang leader Chao came to Gyeonggi this time for an important matter. Hearing this, Shishu pretended to be surprised and said, Master Bao, didn't you come to Gyeonggi to help the victims? That's just one of the reasons. The three-bag master lowered his voice in Shishu's ear. Did you know that 2 years ago, our last leader of the Bag Gang, Ma Daewon, died due to his famous stunt, chokehold and grapple? There are rumors in the world that this is the result of Nan Murong's family's secret knowledge. Now gang leader Chao found out that Gusu Murong came to the capital from the south of the Yangtze River. He didn't know what was going on, so he came over. Shishu heard the inside story told by the other party, kept it in mind, and prepared to go back and report Lin Chen. Time is up. Before Shishu could think about it, the owner of the three bags looked at the extinguished torch on the wall of the Akagi County Granary and immediately raised his arms and shouted. Brothers, rush in and grab the food. Come on. Suddenly, thousands of people chanted in unison throughout Akakura County. Obviously tonight is a sleepless night. Shishu watched as the owner of the three bags took the lead and punched the servants who came after hearing the news and fled in confusion. The opponent turned out to be a warrior who had entered the third-rate realm. In front of the numerous disciples of the Budai beggar clan, these 20 or 30 officers could not think of any resistance at all. Run. Their monthly income is less than 2 taels of silver, why do they have to fight so hard? The owner of the three bags became more and more excited as he looked at the servant who disappeared in a flash. He smashed the wooden door with his palm and called his disciples from the Budai beggar clan to come in. Not long after, each of these beggar gang disciples carried a bag of grain and left here happily. At the speed of these thousands of people, it would only take half a stick of incense to move the food. Shishu also pretended to be serious and walked out of the granary carrying 3 bags of grain. These dog officials clearly have tens of thousands of stones of grain in the granary, but they watch the people in the city starve to death. The owner of the 3 bags spat. Master Bag, if that's the case, why don't we go to the county government office and chop off that dog official's head? At this time, a beggar clan disciple suggested. These words made the owner of 3 bags roll his eyes, and he was obviously moved. But he thought of something and shook his head. The gang leader said that the disciples of the beggar clan have no relations with the imperial court. Now it is a serious crime for us to steal food, and it is an even greater crime to kill an official. Once the news leaks out, the Budai beggar gang will definitely attract the hostility of the imperial court, which is not worth it. Brothers, each of you has a bag of grain, take it and leave. This bag owner is quite decisive. They cannot take away all the food in this granary. If we stay longer, the county police officers will definitely come to support us. It will be difficult to leave then. Gone. Seeing that the owner of the 3 bags was almost done, he blew a whistle and the wind blew. But don't want to. When this group of beggar clan disciples rushed towards the south of the city, they paused and the smiles on their faces froze. By the moonlight, There were dozens of well-armored cavalry on the interface, and the leader was wearing a ghostly mask. Under the light of the moonlight, it is extremely terrifying. Lin Chen looked at the group of beggars thoughtfully and became interested. The moonlight is nice tonight, perfect for a night walk. Lin Chen whispered in a voice that everyone present could hear clearly, and then rode his horse and walked past the Budai beggar clan disciples. It's as if the other person doesn't exist. What's the situation? Only the young general pretended to be ferocious and whispered, "If these grains are stolen by you, be careful, I will chop off your heads." After that, he followed the team. The owner of the 3 bags was shocked when he heard this. The other party's words were obviously telling him. The other party had already known about his plan to rob the Akakura County Granary. I just don't know why, so I didn't pay much attention to it. The owner of Sanbaobao, who thought of something, wiped the cold sweat from his forehead and bowed deeply to the figure dressed as the leading general. A certain family thanked the general for his kindness on behalf of the people of Akang County. Shishu looked at the movements of the 3-bag owner and chuckled in his heart. This guy is quite a sensible person. As for the magistrate of Akang County who learned that the granary had been robbed, he was so shocked that he got up from his concubine's bed. Waste. The magistrate of Akang County, who was hurriedly brought to the granary, looked at the mess on the ground and cursed the governor guarding the granary angrily. No matter kneeling on the ground, he begged for mercy. I can spare you, but this granary has been robbed. When the higher-ups come to hold me accountable, who will come to intercede on my behalf? And that's it. Originally, the magistrate of Akang County was claiming that the capital was suffering from floods this year and would definitely not be able to pay the taxes this year. If he paid the taxes in full, it would be a great achievement, and he might be able to move up the list. Now that he had made a lot of money from the flood, he started to think about getting promoted. Just for now, most of the grain used to pay this year's taxes was robbed, and his plan came to nothing. The magistrate of Akang County was so angry that he wanted to remove all the officials from office. Only, what the magistrate of Chikang County did not expect was that the rebellious general Lin Chen, whom he had met today, would come. Did the other party come to see his joke? The magistrate of Akang County, who had a somewhat ugly expression, was unwilling to deal with polite courtesy and wanted to give Lin Chen a cold look. But don't want to. Lin Chen's deep gaze fell on him and he said 2 words calmly. Take it. Yang Qilang has been waiting for this time for a long time. A kite dismounted, grabbed the collar of the Akang County magistrate, slapped off the magistrate's black gauze hat, and forced him to kneel on the ground. Lin Chen, the magistrate of Akang County, did not expect to come to such a place, so he struggled to raise his head and asked Lin Chen why he dared to do this. I am an official of the imperial court. How dare you act so recklessly and ignore the laws of the imperial court? I will definitely take part in this. Lin Chen looked at these bewildered Akang County officers and didn't know what to do. You must know that these personal guards brought by Lin Chen are all wearing armor and staring at them eagerly. If there is a slight movement, someone's head might fall to the ground. Song Jia, do you still maintain your official status at this time? Lin Chen rode up to the other party and said in an indifferent tone, you don't know that this general has the responsibility of supervising the counties in Gyeonggi province under His Majesty's decree. How dare you, a corrupt official like you who bends the law and disregards the life and death of the people, dare to do it in front of this general? Howling. Now that the granary has been stolen, even if this general cuts you off on the spot, no one in the court or above will dare to say anything. Song Jia panicked when he heard the murderous intent in Lin Chen's tone. The previous arrogance on his face disappeared completely, and he was afraid of confessing. I'm sorry. I know I'm guilty. I beg General Lin to show mercy. I will be imprisoned and escorted to Dali Temple for trial at a selected date. Yes. Yang Qilang cut off a corner of Song Jia's official robe with a knife, and then stuffed it into his mouth. Woo! How could Song Jia, who still wanted to argue in front of Lin Chen, be able to resist Yang Qilang's strength? Song Jia was carried away like a little chicken, his whimpering was extremely miserable. Only then did Lin Chen look at the shivering guard present. These guys were already scared to death by Lin Chen's methods. If a county magistrate is told to take it down, he will take it down. Let alone those petty officials like him. Tomorrow, I, the general, will see the soup kitchen shack set up in the northwest of the city. You don't have to worry about it in the south of the city. Have you understood? Yes. The police officers kowtowed their heads cautiously one by one. Seeing this, Lin Chen raised the corners of his mouth slightly. He was able to take down Song Jia in one fell swoop by using the Butai Beggar Gang to make trouble for his disciples by robbing them of food. The next day, most ordinary people in Akang County are still unaware of the changes. Only those hungry people who were on the verge of death from starvation learned that the government began to provide porridge. Nature. The Budai Beggar Gang disciples who had robbed the food were also cautiously building soup kitchen tents privately, for fear of being discovered by the government. But don't want to. A beggar clan disciple hurriedly came to report to the owner of 3 bags. Master Bag, Song Jia, the dog officer, was captured by the rebel general Lin Chen. Now there are soup kitchens all over the city. Lin Chen. Hearing this name, he couldn't help but think of the general figure last night. No wonder the other party ignored him and others, and wanted to use this to bring down Song Jia. But this is definitely a good thing for the hungry people in the city. From the fact that the general started to provide disaster relief immediately, it can be seen that the other party is not an insect like Song Jia. In this case, let's open the soup kitchen too. The 3-bag owner has not forgotten the threat from the young man last night. This disciple obviously didn't understand the reason. Don't worry about it, just do as the owner of this bag says. The owner of 3 bags became excited after he figured out the key. Really? The people who robbed food last night became a group of thieves who fled to Akang County and were surrounded and killed by General Lin's soldiers. The heads are still hanging on the city walls for public display. Brother Stone, the owner of Sanbaobao, looked at Shishu, who was wearing official and military uniforms, with complicated eyes. Master Bag, I'm sorry. No, come to think of it, even if we weren't there, General Lin would still plan to take action against Song Jia, a doggy official. The owner of these 3 bags is an individual. Master Bag, I have a question for General Lin. Do you know where Nan Marong is? County Government Office. Zhao Min looked at Lin Chen in amazement as he sat in the position of the county magistrate and handled the affairs of Akang County. She only learned about what happened last night early in the morning. Zhao Min admired the decisiveness of the man in front of him. Wake up from sleep. Things have changed in Akang County. General Lin, there are many squires from Akang County outside the county government office asking for an audience. Zhao Min said with a smile, with a hint of ridicule in his tone. Lin Chen was unmoved. Nowadays, most of the people who come to the county government office to inquire about news have something to do with their lives. These squire and landlords followed Song Jia and sold countless fields, turning the people who were originally affected by the disaster into hungry people. Could it be that they thought that since they came to have a relationship with Lin Chen, this matter would be over? Joke. Lin Chen didn't make a move, just waiting. Drive. After Yang Ji received Lin Chen's handwriting, he came to Akang County with 1,000 infantry on the same day. The White Lotus sect in Xianping City is a coward. The soldiers under Lin Chen's command were training all day long, which was very boring. Now that he finally had the opportunity to stretch his muscles, Yang Ji spent a lot of effort to get the job. Yang Ji walked into the county government office wearing armor and knelt down on one knee to salute Lin Chen respectfully. Grown-ups. Lin Chen nodded and grinned. Their people finally arrived. The squire and landlord in Akang County would usually support villagers and take in strong men to serve as nursing homes. It's just that these people can be used to intimidate ordinary people. Facing Lin Chen's soldiers, they can't make any trouble at all. It would be better if he just surrendered. If these strong men want to resist, they will be killed without mercy. For a while, the entire gentry and landowners in Akang County fell into an inexplicable panic. The largest squire in Akang County is the Li family. The previous generation of the Li family had an old man who passed the imperial examination and became a 5th-rank magistrate. Therefore, it can barely be regarded as an official family. How dare you, a mere 5th-grade military attaché, bully my Li family like this? The Li family owns thousands of acres of fertile land outside Akang County, most of which was purchased at low prices from the hungry people affected by the disaster during this period. Now that they learned that Lin Chen asked for an inventory of the fields, the entire Li family was in a panic. Now the head of the Li family is surnamed Li, with a single name of Shi and Kangji. In the early years, he had passed the imperial examination, but when he asked for a job as an official, he came back and became the head of the Li family. With his status as a judge, even Song Jia, the magistrate of Chikang County, has to take Li Zai's face into consideration. I saw the rich old man sitting in the upper position, his face was neither sad nor happy, and he didn't answer any words. This old man is none other than Li Shi. The old people sitting around are all elders of the Li family. The person who said Lin Chen insulted the Li family earlier was one of this group of people. General Lin said that he paid what we paid for it earlier. Li Shi raised his eyebrows and glanced at these clan elders, his tone was very calm. Clan leader. The clan elders heard something in Li Zai's words, but still asked unwillingly. Hold on. Li Shi waved his hand and said, a certain family has agreed to sell land to General Lin this time. You can just take care of it yourself. The elders present looked at each other in shock when they heard this. They originally wanted to use Li Zai's official position to resist, but they didn't expect the clan leader to surrender first. HMPH. If the patriarch is so weak, how will outsiders view our Li family? That is. One of the clan elders got up angrily and left the table and walked out. The people present followed and walked out. What about you? Li Shi glanced at the clan elders who were still staying but were restless. Clan leader, let a certain family think about it for a few days. Some who were undecided stood up and left. In this case, I won't leave you alone. After hearing this, Li Shi also got up and walked to the back hall. In the back hall, a young man dressed as a scribe is waiting here. Father. The young man bowed respectfully and saluted. Li Zai's face softened a little when he saw his son. This is his eldest son, named Li Chenggen. It was Li Zai's great regret that he had only passed the Juran exam in his life. However, his son was also a good reader, so Li Shi naturally valued him and took him with him to teach him on weekdays. Seeing his son's shoes stained with mud, Li Shi couldn't help but smile and said, did you go up high and look far away with that Peng's cousin today? I couldn't hide it from my father, so my son and his cousin went to Qingsong Temple to view bamboos. Li Chenggen scratched his hair and said truthfully. Your cousin's family is well educated and his knowledge is excellent. He has 3 generations of 7 Jinshi scholars and is far from comparable to the Li family. Li Shi thought of something and couldn't help but sigh. Both families have the surname Li, which shows that they are related through ancestors. Indeed, they were still a family 100 years ago. It's a pity that something happened and the family was separated. But, although the family was divided, the Peng family also settled down in Chikang County. What is unexpected is, in this Li family of Peng family, the popularity of Chinese music is at its peak, and 7 Jinshi scholars have been produced in 3 generations. Nowadays, the young master of the Li family is a literary star. He is only 17 years old. He has learned a lot from ancient and modern times and is rich in talents. This young master of the Li family has the appearance of being the #1 scholar. My cousin who is looking for pleasure will definitely be the top scorer in high school. Li Chenggen also nodded in agreement. In that case, what are you doing back here? Li Shi glanced at his son and spoke in a slightly serious tone. Hearing this, Li Chenggen looked a little annoyed. You must know that he has learned the knowledge of saints since he was a child. In Li Chenggen's view, the right thing to do is to provide relief to the hungry people in this disaster year, but he didn't expect that the Li family was coercing the hungry people to sell their fields to the Li family at a low price. I originally wanted to ask my father Li Shi to stop it, but I didn't expect him to be indifferent to the matter. Seeing his son's expression, Li Shi knew what was going on in his heart, so he said helplessly. Chenggen, my father is the head of the Li clan. In this big world, there are always things that people have to compromise on. But, Li Shi changed the topic and talked about Lin Chen's investigation of Tian Li. Oh, when Li Chenggen heard this, his eyes lit up. General Lin is a good official who cares about the people. Hearing Li Chenggen's innocent words, Li Shi couldn't help but hold his forehead and shake his head. General Lin's methods are too tough, and he doesn't know how many squires will be willing to hand over the benefits they have obtained. Whatever. Li Shi planned to become a country squire who would cooperate with Lin Chen and create a good relationship for his son. My father has already sent the paperwork to find out what happened in the field to the county government. Speaking of this, Li's eyes flashed with distress. What is a country squire? It is the land purchased by ancestors for generations. Li Chengen was quite happy when he heard this. He hurried home this time just to persuade his father not to go against the government. Chung'an, do you know that the way to be an official is difficult to overcome? Li Shi planned to use Lin Chen to find out about the fields to educate Li Chengen. In his opinion, Lin Chen would definitely be disappointed in this matter. However, before Li Shi and Li Chengen could say a few words, they heard a servant coming to summon them. Master, the elders of the clan want to see you. Li Shi was startled when he heard this. Didn't these clan elders just leave? Why are you here with your sleeves on again? Wait, what is this? Li Shi went out and saw the clan elder with a frightened expression. Head of the clan, a certain family is willing to cooperate with the investigation of the land and sell the land. The elders of the Li family said anxiously with a look of horror on their faces. Clan leader, please make the decision. Li Shi looked incredulous when he heard this. Why are these guys changing their faces faster than flipping through a book? How is this going? After detailed discussions, Li Shi just learned from the clan elder. The Zhang family in the west of Chikang County was confiscated by Lin Chenjia on the charge of collaborating with the White Lotus sect. The 3 generations of Zhang family heads who were the masterminds were beheaded for treason, and the rest were exiled to the border area of 3,000 miles, and their family properties were confiscated. Hiss. Li Shi looked in disbelief at such cruel means. He previously taught Li Chengen that he had just passed Yi, but he didn't know that there was such a thing as steelmaking. Lin Chen sighed as he looked at the various properties confiscated from the Zhang family, amounting to more than 300,000 taels of silver. Certainly, the bulk of it is still the land deeds accumulated by the Zhang family over the past 100 years. Master Lin, Mu Guiying came over with a surprised look on her face, holding many letters in her hand. Are the squires from Akang County willing to cooperate? Lin Chen asked calmly with awe in his heart. Yes, Mu Guiying nodded excitedly. Hey, Lin Chen chuckled, with a cold look on his lips. It has to be effective in killing the chicken to scare the monkeys. Certainly, the Zhang family who was pushed out by Lin Chen actually did not accuse each other wrongly. The Zhang family really secretly colluded with the White Lotus sect, and he only took action when the evidence was complete. Lin Chen thought for a while, then waved his hand to Mu Guiying and said, go and supervise the officials in Chikang County to return the property to the hungry people. If anyone dares to fish in the troubled waters, then I'll chop off his head. Mu Guiying responded quickly without Lin Chen having to say anything. As the saying goes, those who are close to ink are black, and those who are close to vermilion are red. Mu Guiying followed Lin Chen for so many days and learned some of Lin Chen's ideas on how to do things. Lin Chen suddenly noticed the letter Mu Guiying brought, and a look of surprise flashed across his face. This Li Shi is the head of the local Li family. It seems so, right? Lin Chen thought for a while and decided to pay a visit to the head of the Li family. After all, if the other party is so cooperative, it's hard for him to raise the knife again. For a slap, you have to give a sweet date. Drive. Yang Qilang and other 7 or 8 personal guards changed into warrior attire and followed Lin Chen to the Li family's house on horseback. Lin Chen looked at the quiet and peaceful Wubao scene in front of him, with a look of thought in his eyes. This boundary is the place where Li's main family lives. Under floods, ordinary people fled and begged. These squire and landowners can still maintain their peaceful appearance. Yang Qilang didn't know why his general suddenly stopped and stared at the forest scene in front of him, and the guards also stopped. The horse is frightened. The horse is frightened. But don't want to. At this moment there was a shout. Just look at the dirt road not far away, and a brown horse is pulling the frame of the car like crazy and running rampant on the road. Vaguely, I could still hear the screams of a woman on the carriage. Lin Chen frowned slightly as he looked at the car rushing towards their group. Sir, Yang Qilang was about to step forward and stop the horse. Lin Chen raised his hand to signal Yang Qilang that there was no need to move, and he didn't know when a green leaf appeared in his hand. Call out. The leaves cut through the suspension between the carriages at an extremely fast speed. Ah! Unexpectedly, the carriage stopped suddenly, and the woman in the carriage stumbled out. What a coincidence! Lin Chen happened to be on the path where the opponent flew over. Lin Chen subconsciously stretched out his hand and hugged him. This action is a bit frivolous. However, Lin Chen didn't pay much attention and raised his hand to put the opponent down. But he didn't expect the woman to dare to open her eyes in fear and look into Lin Chen's eyes under the ghost face. I saw this woman with a slightly pale face, bright eyes and white teeth, but her figure was too thin. Miss. At this time, several servants who were following closely ran over panting. Lin Chen then carefully put the opponent down from his horse. Miss, are you not injured? A maid hurriedly stepped forward and asked anxiously. The woman shook her head, but still stared at Lin Chen with wide, bright eyes. At the same time, a clear male voice sounded in Lin Chen's ears. Brother, what a flying leaf technique. Ha! Lin Chen turned around suddenly. I saw a young man with a graceful temperament and handsome appearance not far away, looking at me. An acquired master. Lin Chen felt a hint of danger in the other party. Judging from the other party's age, he must be less than 20 years old. The young man noticed Lin Chen's wary eyes and introduced himself. Li Zunwan, may I ask my brother's name? Li Zunwan. Lin Chen felt slightly shocked. Could it be Xiao Li Fidao, Li Zunwan? Unexpectedly, I encountered another heavyweight here. No wonder his intuition reminded him that the man in front of him was dangerous. You must know that this little Li flying knife can kill anything with one shot. But at the moment, Li Zunwan probably isn't as skilled as he is in the book. Li Zunwan, who didn't know what Lin Chen was thinking, was also looking at Yang Qilang and others. Bandits are rampant these days. The leading ghost-faced man could not see any martial arts skills, but the flying leaf skills just now would make even a top-notch warrior look down upon him. As for these followers, all of them have plump and rosy faces and calloused hands. They are either habitual gangsters or military personnel. Li Zunwan thought about the major news in Shikang County today, and he had an answer in his mind. Lin Chenjia. Lin Chen bowed his hand to Li Zunwan. Really? Li Zunwan confirmed what he was thinking and had a smile on his face. In his opinion, General Lin was a person worth meeting. The two of them just chatted for a few words, but Li Zunwan felt like he was late for meeting him and invited Lin Chen to sit in the forest garden. Brother Zunwan, let's do it next time. Lin Chen declined politely. I still have official duties to attend to. According to the original plot, Li Zunwan has not even gone to Beijing to take the exam and is the top pick in high school. Because of his fame as a Tanhua, Li Zunwan was just called Xiao Li Tanhua. Although he intended to establish a good relationship with Li Zunwan in advance, he still had important matters to deal with, so he could only decline. When Li Zunwan heard this, a look of surprise appeared on his face. Then he said hello to the rescued woman. Cousin, that. Ha! The woman glared at Li Zunwan angrily. The latter touched his nose in embarrassment. If it weren't for you, the lady's horse wouldn't be frightened. The maid next to her stared at Li Zunwan angrily. After hearing this conversation, Lin Chen made a guess about the identity of the woman in front of him. Lin Xian. In the original book, she and Li Zunwan got engaged. But because Long Xiaoyun rescued Li Zunwan, he later fell in love with Lin Xian at first sight. Li Zunwan fell into entanglement because of this, and even surrendered to it, causing Lin Xian to give up on him, and finally gave it up to Long Xiaoyun. How to say, Li Zunwan is a person who values love and justice. But in handling emotions, he is too hasty. Thinking of this, Lin Chen looked at Li Zunwan with a strange look in his eyes. As an acquired master, Li Zunwan naturally noticed Lin Chen's gaze and was a little confused. Ms. Lin, I think your face lacks color, your body is thin, or you have congenital deficiencies. You can ask a famous teacher to nurse you back to health. Lin Chen said something to the woman in front of him who had a pitiable fate, and couldn't help but feel a little pity in his tone. Lin Xian was also a smart woman, and she immediately heard the different meaning in Lin Chen's words. Thanks. Before Lin Xian could open her mouth to say thank you, Lin Chen left without looking back. Cousin, what General Lin said is true. Your body really needs to be recuperated. Li Zunwan agreed. Cousin Lin, you don't know something. The theory of the 5 elements of the human body taught by Chinese medicine is wrong. I happened to buy a few Western medical books from the Hongmao people in Guangzhou, which record. Hey, Li Zunwan saw that Lin Chen left without looking back, and continued quickly. The book also said that if relatives in the fifth server get married, their blood will be deformed. It's because we didn't get married when we were children. What Lin Chen didn't know was that the fates of many important figures in this mixed martial arts world had actually changed slightly. When leaving, Lin Chen suddenly noticed the system panel, and his peach blossom movement, which had not been out for a long time to show his presence, started to move. Red Luan stars shine, interesting at first meeting. Huh, what's going on? Look at these 8 words, are they describing love at first sight? Who did you meet? Could it be that it was Lin Chen? Have you heard any news? Then where did General Lin come from? Which official in the court is behind him? Do you think we can avoid this disaster if each family contributes some money and sends it to the monk in the capital? The monk's book is like distant water, it cannot relieve the near fire in front of you. In the main hall of the Li family's house, most of the squires from Shikang County gathered here to discuss countermeasures. Nature. The focus of these squires' discussion was Lin Chen's fatal official notice to inspect the fields. As a squire in Ungxing Township, the Akang County government wanted to give some respect to the squire, so they naturally tried every means to deduct taxes. In the last years of ancient dynasties, financial austerity often occurred. In short, the court has no money. Where's the money? You have to ask landlords and squires like Li Shi. Take the Li family as an example. There are hundreds of households of tenant farmers who rely on the Li family. These people nominally lease the Li family's land for farming, and naturally did not need to pay taxes. The Li family, who was supposed to pay back the tenant farmers' taxes, had previously been behind the scenes, and no one from the Akang County officials dared to pursue the payment. Now, once the fields are cleared, they, the country squires, will definitely bleed a lot. Li Shi looked at the flickering eyes of everyone present and couldn't help but shook his head. Fortunately, the head of the Li family voted early and didn't have to mix with these insects to fight against the government. Seeing that Li Shi didn't speak, the squires present were like ants on a hot pot, anxious. A long-bearded man wearing a brocade robe from Shu could not stand it anymore, so he held his hand to Li Shi again and said, "Brother Li, you have to say a few words. What should we do?" Everyone present looked at Li Shi, with hope on their faces. After all, in Akang County, the head of the Li family has the highest status. Seeing this, Li Shi chuckled and took a sip of tea, but still had no intention of saying anything. After all, he can't make the final decision on this matter, everything still depends on General Lin. There is no need for the Li family to make the general unhappy because of these people. Seeing that Li Shi still didn't express his position, everyone looked a little ugly, and they knew in their hearts that the Li family had made a decision and would not join in with them. In this case, we are busy with business, so we'll leave first. At this time, the 7 or 8 country squires stood up and left with ugly expressions. Brother Wang Ji. Well, seeing that the squire headed by Wang Ji left without looking back, the remaining people looked hesitant. Li Shi looked at the confident back of Wang Ji, his eyes flashing slightly. The Wang family has only been rich for about 10 years, and is rumored to have connections with a martial arts sect called the Money Gang. This sect has received mixed reviews. As long as he has money, the other party will dare to do anything. Together with Feng Yu Tower, he is the only killer organization in the martial arts world. Is it possible? Li Shi was startled by his guess. Does this Wang Ji want to hire people from the Money Gang to kill Lin Chen, a troublesome military attaché? While Li Shi was hesitating, the other squires also stood up and left. Only the middle-aged man in brocade robes stayed, looking at Li Shi suspiciously. This man's name is Lin Hua, he is the head of the Lin family, and he is very close to the head of the Li family. Brother Li, why didn't you come forward and say something just now? Lin Hua asked with a puzzled look on his face. Brother Lin, Li Shi motioned him to calm down. Follow me to meet someone. Lin Hua didn't know why after hearing this, but he got up and followed Li Shi to the inner hall. I saw a group of mighty sergeants standing on both sides of the inner hall. This scene shocked Lin Hua. It turned out that General Lin, whom they were discussing how to deal with, had already arrived at the Li family's house. No wonder Li Shi, an old fox, didn't express his position. He dared to take sides. Brother Lin, the Li and Lin families are kindred spirits. Li Shi persuaded Lin Hua not to go against the court. After all, Lin Chen really had a knife in his hand. When Lin Hua heard what Li Shi said, his expression changed uncertainly, and then he nodded in agreement with difficulty. Thank you, Brother Li, for informing me in advance. Lin Hua gratefully bowed his hand to Li Shi. When Li Shi saw this, his expression relaxed a lot. Let's go with a certain family to meet General Lin. Lin Chen did not touch the tea beside him. On one side, Li Chenggan, Li Zai's legitimate son, was receiving him. What he didn't expect was, besides Li Chenggan, there was also Li Zunwan who was winking at him. That look in his eyes was saying, brothers, we meet again. As for the hidden gaze that looked at him from time to time, the corner of Lin Chen's mouth twitched. Unexpectedly, the head of the Li family was related to Li Zunwan. The atmosphere in the inner hall is a little weird. But after Li Shi and Lin Hua walked in, the atmosphere relaxed. General Lin. Li Shi smiled and introduced Lin Hualai next to him. Young people have met General Lin. Lin Hua's attitude was very respectful. Lin Chen raised his hand to indicate that he didn't have to be so restrained. Do you know why I am here, General? Lin Chen looked at Li Shi and asked with burning eyes. The common people don't know. There are people dying of hunger everywhere in Akang County. You squires don't care about providing disaster relief, but you still forcefully buy fields from the hungry people. Is it possible that you don't take the court's laws into consideration? Lin Chenyi's words can be regarded as defining the nature of the squire in Akang County. Really? After hearing these words, Li Shi and Lin Hua tightened their expressions. Not taking the law seriously is, to say the least, having no regard for the law. To be honest, he is the same as the White Lotus sect traitor. Just when Lin Chen was beating Li Shi and Lin Hua, Li Zunwan looked at Lin Chen with a strange look in his eyes. This young official, who has 3 sects and 7 jinshi, has a deep understanding of the art of being an official. Li Zunwan, the magistrate of Akang County, also disliked him because he was a corrupt person. But I didn't expect that this military attaché of the imperial court, although he was a general, had the wisdom of a scholar in his speech. He is a versatile man in both civil and military affairs. This made Li Zunwan want to make friends with Lin Chen even more. Lin Chen naturally didn't know what Li Zunwan was thinking, and he was still beating these 2 people. Do you have any objections to finding out about Tianli? Objection. Li Shi subconsciously looked at Lin Hua and smiled helplessly. The knife was stuck to his neck, so what objections could there be? Lin Hua and Li Shi shook their heads together. That being the case, Lin Chen softened his attitude towards the Li and Lin families who were willing to cooperate. As the saying goes, you have a big stick in one hand and sweet dates in the other. After the beating, some compensation must be given. This general plans to recruit hungry people, provide work relief in Akang County, build new water conservancy projects, and open up wasteland. When Li Shi and Lin Hua heard this, confusion appeared on their faces. Why, use work instead of relief? After Lin Chen briefly explained to the 2 of them, the eyes of the 2 owners lit up. According to what Li Shi said, the hungry people will be recruited by the Akang County Government Department, and then new water conservancy projects will be built around Akang County. Traditional country gentlemen like them know the benefits of water conservancy very well. But why don't you want to do it? It's nothing more than unwillingness to benefit others at the expense of oneself. Water conservancy is still one aspect. According to Lin Chen's wishes, newly developed wasteland can be exempted from taxes for 2 years. This rule also applies to big families like the Li family and the Lin family. You know, this is a good opportunity for legal compliance to expand your field share. The 2 people immediately moved forward and said, the Li-Lin family is willing to cooperate with you in your administration. The next day, Lin Chen directly ordered his soldiers and officials from Akang County to start investigating Tian Li's work. All the fields previously purchased by force were redeemed by the government at the same price. The squire in Akang County thought that this was Lin Chenjia's greedy way to collect these fields under his name. But don't want to. All the fields purchased by the government were returned to the original owners. As for the fields that were missing or dead and had no owners, Lin Chen also asked Lin Chen to register them and distribute them to the victims who had fled from other places. Certainly, just having fields is not enough, soil cannot be eaten as food. A so-called official announcement about providing work for relief reached the ears of the hungry people. Go to the government office to sign up to renovate canals, weirs and ponds, open up wasteland and burn mountains. You will be given 2 copper coins a day, 3 meals a day, 2 coins and 1 coin. For a time, the number of applicants was overwhelming. The squire of Akang County, who had regained his composure, also focused on the tax exemption for land reclamation. In particular, the Li family and the Lin family had already begun to gather their tribesmen to open up wasteland and farmland. With insufficient manpower, these squires had to offer far more favorable terms than the government to attract hungry people. Most of the people living on this land have an inexplicable fanaticism for the land. Because land is also hard currency from a certain perspective. Before there was no flooding. In Akang County, lower fields cost 30 taels of silver per acre, middle fields cost 5 taels, and upper fields and paddy fields are even more expensive. Nowadays, land reclamation is a sure profit business no matter how you look at it. Mr. Lin, this work for relief program is really useful. Lin Chen laughed in his heart when he heard Li Zunwan's exclamation. This is natural. After all, this trick will still be useful even if it takes 1,000 years. As for why Li Zunwan was in the county government office. Naturally, he was captured by Lin Chen. Not only Li Zunwan, but also Li Chengan, all worked beside Lin Chen under the instruction of Li Shi, an old fox. Lin Chen naturally knew its intention, but he didn't care. Although Lin Chen planned the direction clearly and logically, if he were to manage tens of thousands of households in Akang County, he would be blinded. So, Lin Chen set his sights on Li Zunwan. This boy is a talented person who studied Confucian scholarship. He can manage a county with ease. Li Chengan was also arranged by Lin Chen to be the temporary chief clerk, helping Li Zunwan manage Akang County. Li Chengan was obviously very satisfied with his position as chief clerk. He led the officials around all day long to inspect the work for relief situation. But, Lin Chen could not stay in Akang County forever. His duty was to destroy the White Lotus sect army. Looking at the situation in Akang County, Lin Chen deliberately planned to hand over Akang County to Li Zunwan for temporary management until the court sent a new county magistrate. Li Zunwan looked slightly bitter when he heard this. At present, Li Zunwan is still a young man with a somewhat out-of-touch personality, not as bitter and hateful as in the book. Therefore, he stayed in the county office like a clay Buddha all day long, feeling uncomfortable all over. Brother Lin Chen, why don't we continue talking about martial arts? I'll see you that day. Li Zunwan immediately began to change the subject. That day, Li Zunwan saw Lin Chen's swordsmanship using a green leaf as a sword, and he was very interested. According to what Li Zunwan said, what he learned was taught by a wandering Taoist priest when he was a child. He had no name. He called this skill knife flying skill. Obviously this knife flying skill is the prototype of Shaoli's future knife flying skills. Lin Chen had to admit that Li Zunwan was an out-and-out genius in martial arts. At such an age, he is already an acquired warrior. This speed was almost comparable to Lin Chen who was cheating. Certainly, as a son of an official, Li Zunwan had a very high level of martial arts, but he had never experienced what Zhonghu was. It can be seen that Li Zunwan yearns for the martial arts. It's just that he, Li Zunwan, has to shoulder the expectations of his father and ancestors to become the #1 scholar in the examination, so he can only suffer in reading the 4 books and 5 classics. When Lin Chen heard this, he couldn't help but twitch the corners of his mouth. If you train in both civil and martial arts, you will be able to pass the examination to be the best in civil arts, and you will be able to cultivate your martial arts to the acquired state. In a way this is the top protagonist template. I have to suspect that this guy is in Versailles. But, Lin Chen thought of something and shook his head imperceptibly. As beautiful as Li Zunwan was in the first half of his life, he was so miserable in the second half of his life. Sir, Miss Lin is here to deliver food again. Just when Lin Chen was slandering, Yang Qilang's announcement sounded outside the door. Ha! Li Zunwan laughed loudly when he heard this, and said as if he was watching a good show, Mr. Lin, my cousin is very stubborn. You'd better try this meal. Lin Chen couldn't help but frown slightly as he listened to Li Zunwan's joke. Yes, What Lin Chen couldn't understand was, logically speaking, Li Zunwan and Lin Xian, who were supposed to be childhood sweethearts and were destined to be babies, have become ordinary relatives with little overlap in the current world of mixed martial arts. Is this some sort of butterfly effect? Originally, Lin Chen was a little wary of whether there was any plot against him. But later, Lin Chen suddenly understood. In ancient times, isn't it normal for a squire to fawn over an official? Before Lin Chen came, Lin Hua had intended to get closer to Song Jia and marry Lin Xian to him as an equal wife. The so-called equal wife, to put it bluntly, is a concubine. But the appearance of Lin Chen caused Song Jia to be imprisoned. But this cannot stop Lin Hua from wanting to build a relationship. Or, Lin Chen, a powerful general from the capital, is an even better candidate. In modern times, Lin Hua's actions would definitely be criticized by feminists. But this is ancient times. In ancient times, one of the purposes of raising daughters in wealthy families was marriage. According to Li Zunwan, his cousin Lin was not very capable, and he was unwilling to accept the gradual decline of the Lin family. That's why Lin Hua wanted to cling to relationships and revive the Lin family. As the target of being clung to, Lin Chen felt helpless. General Lin, cousin. Lin Xian gave a blessing ceremony. Lin Chen's ghostly eyes looked at Lin Xian with a thoughtful look on his face. It might be wrong to say that Lin Xian fell in love with him at first sight, but she definitely had a good impression. Lin Xian had been showing favor to him during this period, and she most likely wanted to use his help to escape from the Lin family. Think about it this way. That day, I noticed that Lin Xian's energy and blood were weak, and she must have been suffering from worry. Anyone who has a father who wants to sell himself will be similar to Lin Xian. This is one of the few things a girl who has accepted ancient teachings and etiquette can do to resist. Lin Chen couldn't help but feel a headache when he thought of this. If he didn't have a special status, he would not refuse Lin Xian who came to his door. This is a stunningly beautiful woman who is rare in the world in the original work. General Lin, I have something important to tell you. Is it important? Lin Chen was startled when he heard this. Li Zunwan, on the other hand, nodded understandingly and stood up, muttering, Master Lin, I have to go take care of government affairs first. He turned around and left without any sloppiness at all. When Lin Chen saw this, his eyes narrowed slightly. What's the matter? Grown-ups. Lin Xian took off her veil and looked at Lin Chen without any sign of weakness. That beautiful face, which still had little blood, lost some softness in its delicate eyes. The little lady wants to make a deal with you, sir. Greenwood Valley. Lin Chen's expression was indifferent, his eyes wandering over the many dangling figures in the valley. This is what Lin Xian said about the transaction. Sir, the money gang and several rural squires in Akang County want to do harm to you. Lin Xian tried her best to sound calmer. I had this idea in mind after overhearing the conversation between my father and Li Shi that day. Lin Xian pawned all the jewelry her mother left her for money, and spent a lot of money to hire many people from the martial arts world to find traces of the Wang family and the money gang. Money gang. Lin Chen recited these 3 words silently in his heart. As expected, this gang was originally the background force in Li Zunwan's story. The money gang in the book is the most powerful force in the entire martial arts world. However, in this mixed martial arts world, the money gang has a low reputation. Sir, I'm going to deal with these gangsters right now. Yang Wulong looked angry when he heard what Lin Xian just said. There are about 300 to 400 people in this valley. It seemed that he was planning to find an opportunity to ambush Lin Chen on the road. But from Lin Chen's point of view, most of the people in this group were squire guards and the like, and a few were warriors from the money gang. Do you want to capture him in such a battle? It's so ridiculous. Good. Lin Chen brought about 30 personal guards and 500 infantry with him on this trip. If Yang Wulong takes action with these men, there is a high probability that this group of people will not be able to escape. Yes. Yang Wulong heard this and immediately accepted the order and left. After watching Lin Chen lead Yang Wulong away, he looked back at Lin Xian beside him thoughtfully. Ms. Lin, what do you want from this deal with this general? The little girl just wants to serve the general. Lin Xian said. A flash of embarrassment flashed across her cheeks, and she moved her fingers to show that she was very uneasy. Oh, Lin Chen couldn't help laughing and shaking his head when he heard this. Seeing Lin Chen like this, has she made up her mind to escape from the Lin family? That being the case, Lin Chen agreed under Lin Qian's slightly nervous gaze. Seeing this, she just breathed a sigh of relief. If you really want to be treated as a commodity and married off, why not choose someone you think is pretty good? Kill. Not long after, there was a cry of killing in the valley. Lin Chen heard the sound and looked towards the valley. I saw Yang Wulong clapped his horse and rushed to the front, stabbing left and right with the spear in his hand. There was no enemy in sight. Apparently, the money gang and the squire nurse who planned to ambush Lin Chen did not expect to be discovered. The reason they chose this valley was because it was secluded and not many people came. Unfortunately, the valley opens outward and is surrounded by cliffs on 3 sides. This is just great. Yang Wulong ordered his soldiers to block the exit, which was like catching a turtle in an urn. After about half a stick of incense, the warriors and guardians of the money gang who couldn't bear it chose to surrender. Lin Chen looked at these panic-stricken nurses with a slight coldness at the corner of his mouth. Originally, Akang County resettled many hungry people because of the work for relief program. There was not much money left from the Songjia and Zhang families. As for the newly planted seeds in the fields, it will take several months to harvest. Now I am worried about how to solve the livelihood of the hungry people during this period. Well, now, with the family background of these squires who participated in the ambush of court officials, Akang County will be able to survive these few months. Search your home, search your home. Same day, several major squires headed by Wang Ji were charged with ambushing the imperial officials and colluding with the White Lotus sect's thieves. General Lin, this food money has solved the urgent need of Akang County. Li Zunwan looked at the grain money that was almost filling the Yamen warehouse, with a smile on his face. At the same time, he felt even more admiration for Lin Chen. Brother Li, I will leave tomorrow. Tomorrow, Li Zunwan raised his eyebrows slightly. Well, I have been wasting a little too much time in Akang County. Lin Chen nodded slightly. In this case, I wish Brother Lin a triumphant return. Li Zunwan said, walked to Lin Chen, lowered his voice and reminded, General Lin, if the money gang accepted the commission to ambush you, then he would never do this. It's so easy to give up and give up. Otherwise, where does the reputation of the other party's only killer organization go? Although the leader of the money gang is unknown in the world, he is no ordinary person. Immediately, Li Zunwan also talked about some rumors about the leader of the money gang. A few years ago, a leader of a second-rate righteous sect died under mysterious circumstances. It is said that it was the help of money. The master's martial arts realm is extraordinary, and he is also a good master among acquired warriors. Li Zunwan hoped that Lin Chen would not underestimate this money gang. Lin Chen nodded understandingly when he heard this. The next day, Lin Chen led his army to leave Akang County, and the local people sent him 10 miles away. For these ordinary people, it was clear who gave them a chance to live. General Lin has returned to camp. The general has returned to camp. The military camp of the imperial court, which was confronting Xianping City, was particularly lively today. For ordinary soldiers, Lin Chen is their backbone. The first time Lin Chen returned to camp, he beat drums to gather the generals. Yang Ji, Wei Cheng and other captains came after hearing the news. See General Lin. In the military tent, Yang Ji and others saw the ghost-faced general sitting above him and immediately saluted respectfully. Lin Chen saw this and waved for them to get up. First, let's talk about the movements of the White Lotus sect thieves in Xianping City during my absence, General. Reporting to General, the White Lotus sect's thieves have not made any movements recently and have not left the city to invite battle. Yes, this White Lotus sect thief huddled in Xianping City like a shrunken turtle, ignoring the affairs of the outside world. But don't want to. The imperial army under Lin Chen did not rush to besiege the city, but engaged in a confrontation. In this weird atmosphere, the two sides remained in a stalemate for almost 6 days. Is that so? Lin Chen's eyes showed a thoughtful look. Look, his guess about the White Lotus sect's plan was roughly correct. The White Lotus sect cowered away from the battle, just waiting for something. What the White Lotus sect didn't know was that Lin Chen was also waiting for his secret ultimate move. But right now, you still have to do the whole thing when it comes to acting. Yangji, Wei Cheng. The humble position is here. I order you two to lead your troops to the city walls to invite battle and provocation. Yes, the Imperial Army, which had been silent for a long time, finally made some noise because of Lin Chen's return. About 8,000 troops, led by Yang Ziweikang, left the stronghold and headed for Xianping City. During this period of good food and drink, the soldiers who have been practicing martial arts are no longer the new recruits who left the capital. Really, after the Imperial Army took action, Xianping City also took action. The senior officials of the White Lotus sect in the city, including Protector Zhao, gathered on the city wall to observe the Imperial Army outside the city. Hiss. Some people looked at the military momentum of the Imperial Army outside the city and couldn't help but take a breath. HMPH. Only Protector Zhao snorted disdainfully. In front of the military formation method, these Imperial troops are nothing more than chickens and dogs. Everyone present had different expressions when they heard this. Some people laughed apologetically, and some were deeply convinced, but most of them had a look of displeasure in their eyes. Turn out to be, these White Lotus sect protectors are actually qualified to practice the military formation method. However, the military formation method is not something that can be learned casually. There are very few lieutenant generals of the White Lotus cult army in the city who have learned it. Only Protector Zhao is the best among them. Therefore, it was heard in the ears of many guardians who did not deal with Guardian Zhao on weekdays. When the other party said this, he was secretly mocking them as protectors who had not learned the military formation method. Guardian Zhao, you have such a strong tone. Don't think that just because you have learned a few formations, you can show off your power here. Even if you don't look at who the opponent is. Don't underestimate the enemy. Seeing the dispute between the two sides, the neutral guardian in white hurriedly stepped in to smooth things over. Hold on, the leader asked us to defend the city and not fight among ourselves. Seeing the guardian in white using the name of the leader, all the guardians present closed their mouths and looked at the Imperial Army outside the city. It's okay. There are only 10,000 soldiers in this group of Imperial soldiers. We don't dare to attack the city even if we want to. The expressions on the faces of the guardians who noticed the number of soldiers under Yangji and Wei Cheng relaxed. Second order, don't lead the troops out of the city to fight. Anyone who disobeys will be killed. The Protector in white issued the order to the leader. Only Protector Zhao was still worried about his brother being killed by the Imperial Army, and wanted to lead his army out of the city to take revenge. However, thinking of the leader's order, Protector Zhao silently suppressed the resentment in his eyes. Captain Yang, these White Lotus cult thieves are ignoring us. Seeing that there was no movement in the city, Wei Cheng whispered to Yang Ji. It's okay. I happen to have a few loud soldiers under my command. Just let them yell and scold them. Yang Ji also kept Lin Chen's words in mind and just invited a fight. Said. Several court soldiers who came to Xianping City and stood outside the bow and arrow range began to yell and curse at the top of their lungs. These soldiers cursed quite unpleasantly and kept talking. The several guardians on the city wall were so angry that their faces were gloomy and veins popped out on their foreheads. There are only over 10,000 people. Let a certain family lead an army to kill them. Some guardians couldn't stand it. No, the leader has strict orders not to leave the city. Lin Chen was also paying attention to the situation in Xianping City. It wasn't until the sun went down that the troops were called back. The soldiers scolded them all afternoon, and their voices became hoarse, but the White Lotus sect thieves in Xianping City were stunned and showed no reaction. Nothing, just go and invite a fight tomorrow. Old God Lin Chen gave the order calmly. General Lin, why is this? Mu Guiying asked Lin Chen only after Yang Ziweikang and others left. Because in her opinion, Lin Chen's behavior and the reaction of the White Lotus sect seemed extremely strange. This confused Mu Guiying, who was studying orthodox military tactics. Want to know? Lin Chen glanced at Mu Guiying, with a hint of amusement in his tone. When Mu Guiying heard this, her expression changed slightly. Thinking back to the time when I was asked to serve someone dressed as a maid. What's wrong with me? Lin Chen said with a smile and suddenly changed the subject. Of course, the requirements this time will not be the same as last time. Because he has something better. Sir. Suddenly, Lin Chen carefully walked into the military tent holding tea. Only Mu Guiying opened her eyes wide when she saw Lin Chen, pointed at Lin Chen and said in astonishment, "How can you bring a woman into the camp? You should know that bringing women into the camp is a taboo in the army. Vice General Mu, please be careful with your words. This Lin Chen is the female medical officer appointed by this general," Lin Chen said righteously. Medical guard. Mu Guiying had never heard of this official position in the army. It's child's play. How can there be such? What kind of medical guard in the army? Of course, I just established it this afternoon, General. Mu Guiying was so angry that he immediately moved out of Li Jiao. As a general, I brought a woman into the camp. I will definitely report this to your majesty. In her opinion, Lin Chen was obsessed with lust. When Lin Chen heard this, he glared at Mu Guiying angrily. Let's see and then talk. Lin Chen is a being with the knowledge of later generations. Be very clear. That is the importance of medical staff in treating wounded soldiers. For example, Nightingale, the famous nurse during World War I, proved this. As long as we work in a clean environment and cooperate with the careful care of medical staff, the mortality rate of the wounded can be reduced by up to 80%. Lin Chen had long been preparing to set up a department similar to a field hospital in the military. I just didn't have the chance before. But this time Lin Chen came back from Akang County. They took away a dozen doctors from the county and 100 young victims. These are all the members of this medical team. Under the leadership of Lin Chen, Mu Guiying. Really? This medical guard made many soldiers in the army curious. Especially the medical and health care members are all little guys who are no more than 11 or 12 years old. It wasn't until the soldiers knew that the medical guard was there to save their lives that they immediately stopped joking in their hearts. Apparently they knew it too. These people are the ones who will save their lives in the future and they dare not offend them. As for the female official Lin who wore a veil all day long, no one dared to disturb her. For Lin Chen, life in the military camp was very new to her. Learn medical skills from the doctor, and also learn from a pamphlet written by Lin Chen. This booklet is very brief. It is written that the sanitary environment of the place where the wounded is located must be ensured, and the cloth used for bandaging must be boiled in boiling water and dried in the sun. Mu Guiying, who originally suspected Lin Chen had bad intentions, was a little surprised after watching the medical training. Is this medical guard really important? As for the female officer named Lin, Mu Guiying also saw her face under the veil after she entered the camp. She is a pure and stunning beauty. In this way, Mu Guiying just stopped. In the past few days, Lin Chen has not been dragged into trouble by Lin Chen. Today, Mu Guiying, who was planning to discuss military affairs with Lin Chen, was blocked in front of the military tent. Why are you stopping me? Mu Guiying glared at the young guard who was stopping her. The other party seems to be Yangji's brother of the same race, and he is quite talented in martial arts. Get out of the way. Mu Guiying said coldly. Yang Qilang is also a fool. Although the guy in front of him was a deputy general in name only, Lin Chen had said before that no outsiders were allowed in. The general has an order that outsiders are not allowed to enter the military tent. Am I an outsider? I, Mu Guiying, am the deputy general of the army. Get out of the way. Mu Guiying suddenly became angry and slapped Yang Qilang on the shoulder. Yang Qilang pouted, and then looked at Mu Guiying's back as he walked in, his eyes widened. Originally, he relied on his own strength and did not intend to give way. But he didn't expect that the deputy general Mu in front of him was even more powerful than him. Yang Qilang couldn't help but swallowed, and planned to wait and apologize to Lin Chen. A certain deputy general, Lin Chen, why are you? Mu Guiying rushed into the military tent angrily, the next word stuck in her throat. Looking inside the military tent, two grown men looked at each other, and the atmosphere was solemn. Apart from Lin Chen, the other person was a warrior dressed as a monk. General Lin, this is something sent by the princess. I ordered you to collect it. Ada looked at Mu Guiying and frowned. This person. My general's deputy general probably has important military information to report. Lin Chen lightly picked up the topic of Ada. What's the matter? With that said, Lin Chen shouted to Mu Guiying in a slightly serious tone. Mu Guiying, get down. Lin Chen scolded. Only Ada looked at Lin Chen with a cold face and said, General Lin, if the transaction between the princess and you is known to outsiders, you will be the unlucky one. In that case, I'd like to thank Mr. Ada for your concern. Lin Chen said with a half-smile. Snort. Ada was choked by Lin Chen's words and didn't speak for a while. The princess's things have been delivered, and a certain family is leaving. General Lin, are these the things sent by Princess Maode, the eldest daughter of Prince Duan? Mu Guiying looked at a dozen carriages being pulled into the camp, with red-painted wooden boxes displayed on them. Looking at the deep ruts left by these carriages on the ground, one can imagine that the cargo on these carriages must be extremely heavy. Lin Chen also glanced at these carriages and nodded imperceptibly. This was the deal between him and Zhao Min that day. If Zhao Min does something for him, he won't tell anyone about his daughter's identity. Certainly, for smart people like Zhao Min, it is better to shut up Lin Chen completely if they believe in other people's guarantees. There is a saying that only the dead can keep secrets. But Zhao Min couldn't do anything to Lin Chen, so he could only use this method to reach some kind of agreement with Lin Chen. That is, I am useful to you and you are useful to me. We can use and cooperate with each other. As for what he asked Zhao Min to send, Lin Chen signaled the soldiers to unload all the red paint boxes from the carriage. After hearing the news, the soldiers stepped forward and carried the boxes in twos and threes. Mu Guiying noticed that the soldiers had a look of difficulty on their faces when they were carrying the box. This made her more and more curious. Of course, Lin Chen did not hide it from Mu Guiying and opened these boxes in front of her. After all, Mu Guiying was a close confidant of the new emperor. Naturally, he, Lin Chen, could not openly and secretly communicate with a prince with a different surname. This is. Mu Guiying watched Lin Chen take out an iron ball weighing about 10 kilograms from the red paint boxes. In the hands of Lin Chen, an acquired master, this iron ball seemed to have no weight. These iron balls. It was Lin Chen who asked Zhao Min to customize the cannonball. You must know that among the rewards Lin Chen received from Wang Zifeng, there was a sailing battleship from the Great Navigation period. These sailing battleships are equipped with hundreds of 24-pound front-loaded artillery, and their firepower can be said to be extremely abundant. Only, after Lin Chen looked at these sail battleships, he suddenly discovered that there were cannons and powder barrels on the ships, but not many cannonballs. Because of this, he just asked Zhao Min to make solid bullets that imitate the 24-pound front-loading artillery, which are these big iron balls. If possible, Lin Chen also planned to remove these artillery pieces from the sail battleship and use them for ground operations. After all, he already has a musket battalion in hand, wouldn't it be normal to have more divine machine gun battalions? Mu Guiying looked at these solid iron balls with confusion, wondering why Lin Chen spent so much effort on them. Lin Chen saw that Mu Guiying wanted to continue questioning, so he made an unspeakable gesture and a mysterious chuckle appeared on his lips. At the moment, everything is ready, all we need is the east wind. Asterisk, 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 Jinling Shui family. What on earth is this scorpion doing? Several elders from the Shui family head family were whispering to each other and discussing a recent topic in Jinling. Most of the people in Jinling knew about this matter, and the Shui family also learned the news. That is Shui Biao, a side member of the Shui family, who suddenly began to sell off Jinling's properties, peddle shop goods, etc., and seemed to be preparing to leave Jinling to seek development elsewhere. Is it possible that Shui Biao thinks that the master family is plotting against his family property? Several clan elders said angrily, with a somewhat unkind expression. People outside didn't know what was wrong with Shui Biao, so they all discussed that Shui Biao acted like this because he was forced by the head of the Shui family. Mother, why did Uncle Shui's temperament change drastically after he went to the capital? In the inner hall of the Shui family, two people were sitting in the decorated boudoir of their daughter's house. One of them has a fair and rich face, resembling that of Guanyin Master. Although she has given birth to children for almost 10 years, she is still as handsome as a young woman. The other person is terrible. She wears a honey-colored tunic coat that fits her body tightly, with a purple and red Sichuan brocade shawl draped over her shoulders. The flowing cloud satin skirt she wears doesn't look too gorgeous. As for this woman's face, it looks more like a fairy in a painting. Her shoulders moisturized her body, just like the tip of a lotus flower emerging. Her pair seemed neither sad nor joyous, but contained some kind of tenderness. This woman is none other than Shui Baochai, the daughter of Aunt Shui. Bao girl, now that Shui Biao has left Jinling, there will be less gossip in my family. Aunt Shui felt that Shui Biao was walking well. She always felt that someone in the clan was planning to bully her orphans and widowed mother, and was planning to let Shui Biao become the master of the family. Now Shui Biao doesn't dare to have this idea, simply because she is Wang Zitang's sister. Aunt Shui forgives Shui Biao for not daring to offend her elder brother. You must know that your brother is now highly valued by the new emperor. He was promoted to the imperial envoy of the 9 border patrol to thoroughly investigate border defense matters. Now the other party must have seen that his plan failed and planned to leave Jinling to form his own lineage. When Shui Baochai heard her mother's speculation, a look of sadness gathered between her eyebrows. Seen by Shui Baochai, Uncle Shui is an upright man and diligent in his work. He will be the right person to help his brother manage the Shui family from now on. But my mother didn't know why she was so wary of Shui Scorpion. Should we let those clan elders with dirty hands and feet manage the Shui family's property for Shui Pan? Shui Baochai was worried that her elder brother Shui Pan would be deceived by the clan elders, causing the Shui family's family business to decline. Now that she is still in the boudoir, she can still help a little. But when she gets married, who will take care of her useless eldest brother? Although Shui Baochai was in a deep boudoir, he still heard what people from Jinling said about his eldest brother. Tell him what a stupid overlord he is. Is this a good name? Mom, my daughter heard that Uncle Shui clan not only sold off his property but also recruited sailors aggressively. Shui Baochai couldn't help but ask, thinking of the rumors she had heard from the maid. Hearing this, Aunt Shui wondered why Shui Baochai asked about this matter, but she nodded. That Shui Biao is indeed recruiting sailors in Jinling to make a living on the seaside. He doesn't know what he is going to do. Aunt Shui obviously doesn't care about these things. Does Uncle Shui want to go overseas to do business? Shui Baochai could only speculate. Along the Jiangnan coast, many people who could not survive chose to go out to sea to make a living. Among these people, there are those who have made a fortune, and there are those who have no bones left. Shui Baochai had heard someone say that there were several pirate families on the sea who liked to throw people into the sea alive and drown them. They call this offering sacrifices to the Dragon King. It is said that among this group of pirates, the Zheng family is the most powerful and is known as the Dragon King Zheng Hai. Not even the Shui family dared to provoke such a strong man. The two women, each with their own thoughts, fell silent for a while, not knowing what they were thinking. Just at this time, hey, the boy hurriedly ran outside the inner hall and shouted. Mother, eldest lady, Master Shui Pan beat someone and was sent to the government again. The mother-in-law and her mother just came back to their senses after hearing the young man's yelling. Shui Baochai, however, seemed to take it for granted. Only Aunt Shui stood up quickly and quickly called the maids close to her to get some money to fish out her precious son. Brother, are you going to Beijing? In the courtyard where plum blossoms fall, standing side by side with Shui Zhu is a woman with graceful temperament and peerless beauty. I can't hide it from my sister, but my brother really plans to go to Beijing. Shui Biao looked at this younger sister who was much younger than him, and reluctantly told the truth. He knew very well that his sister was a talented man and much smarter than him. Eldest brother, did you meet a noble person in the capital this time? Shui Baoqin asked tentatively. Otherwise, it would be impossible to explain why Shui Biao, who has always been steady and reserved, would leave Jinling at the expense of selling off his family property. Hearing the word, noble, Shui Biao's face showed a trace of excitement that was difficult to conceal. To be honest with my sister, my brother did make a friend of a noble person in the capital this time. Thinking of the pie that Lin Chen had drawn for him, Shui Biao could not wait to fly to the capital immediately. Seeing his brother like this, Shui Baoqin felt a trace of worry in his quiet, round eyes. She was worried that her brother had been deceived. After all, from a certain perspective, Aunt Shui is still the nominal mistress of the Shui family. Shui Biao also had to respectfully call the other party aunt. This move is tantamount to telling Aunt Shui that he, Shui Biao, intends to break away from the family of Shui. Although family separation is very common in large families, if the family is divided without the consent of the head of the family and the mother-in-law, people will eventually gossip about it. Sister, you are worrying too much. Seeing the worried look on Shui Baoqin's eyebrows, Shui Biao chuckled and carefully took out a small bag from his sleeve pocket. Sister, do you know what this is? Hearing this, Shui Baoqin couldn't help but look at it curiously. I saw 2 pieces of pure white crystals exposed inside this bag. They were as crystal clear as snow in spring. It was really beautiful. Is this icing? A look of surprise flashed across Shui Baoqin's pretty face. The so-called frosting. It is a sporadic product of boiling sucrose. As its name suggests, icing sugar, as white as frost and snow, is extremely rare. Because of this, icing sugar was only occasionally produced in the sugar-producing areas of Jiaodong, and was still offered to the royal family. Ordinary people want to buy this icing, they have to come up with the equivalent of gold, and there is no market for it if it is still cheap. Why can my eldest brother come up with so much frosting? Shui Baoqin smiled when he saw that his sister was shocked. Looking at Shui Baoqin's look, he also thought of how he looked when he saw the frosting that day. Sister, try this again. Hearing this, Shui Baoqin tapped the white crystal with her tender fingers and licked it. Bah, this is salt. Shui Baoqin was scolded by her brother and couldn't help but scolded her, feeling a little unhappy. Yes, this is salt and icing sugar. When Shui Biao mentioned this, a look of joy appeared on his face. The noble man said frankly that he has a method for making large quantities of this refined salt and sugar frosting, and he is willing to give the method to my brother for sale. Really, Shui Baoqin was also shocked by these words. Not to mention the refined salt, this icing alone is a good product sought after by countless wealthy businessmen and families. Coupled with its status as a royal tribute, it can easily be sold at a high price. On the other hand, my eldest brother earns some hard-earned money by running business all over the country every year. And the business of selling icing sugar is enough for Shui Tan to make a lot of money. Can the noble person really make the decision in this business? The conditions were so good that Shui Baoqin couldn't help but worry about gains and losses. Sister, I don't know, but the person standing behind the other party is that one. Shui Biao pointed to the sky cautiously. Shui Baoqin suddenly understood. His Majesty the Emperor. What kind of noble person did my brother meet in the capital? Certainly, Shui Biao may not know that the so-called Li Jiao platform is just a banner he casually raised. But, from a certain perspective, he, Lin Chen, was indeed a member of the Emperor Li Jiao. In other words, Shui Biao had the Emperor's back. So, does that noble man want my brother to recruit sailors to the capital? Shui Baoqin was so smart that he immediately figured out the purpose of his brother's behavior during this period. Exactly, Shui Biao smiled. Asterisk, 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 bustling downtown area. All Shui Biao's cronies were beating gongs and drums and recruiting sailors everywhere. Hey, you said, I will follow you to work in the capital, and the settlement fee will be 30 taels, and then there will be 2 taels of silver and 2 feet of cloth per month. 2 big men with bare chests and only short shirts to cover their bodies squeezed through the crowd and walked up to the boy who was recruiting sailors. Oops, the boy looked at the 2 men in front of him. One of them is covered in white, and the other has slender limbs and dark skin, and his hands and feet look brisk at first glance. Can you 2 strong men know the nature of water? Seeing that the 2 men were willing to take action, the young man couldn't help but swallowed his saliva and asked. Ha ha. The 2 people couldn't help laughing when they heard the boy asking. If we were in Jiangzhou, who would know the names of our 2 brothers? The big white man half boasted and half boasted. A certain family can swim dozens of miles in the water and submerge in the water for 3 days without any trouble. The 2 brothers grew up by the water. How come they don't know the nature of water? Another dark-skinned man also sneered. In this case, if the 2 warriors state their names, they can take away the 30 taels of housing expenses. That boy had followed Shui Biao all over the place and had seen a lot of things, so he still had some perspective. Oh, sure enough, when the 2 brothers heard this, they couldn't help but glance at the young man. Even his servants are so eloquent, so the head of the family must be a powerful person. Aren't you afraid that 2 brothers from a certain family will not come back after taking the money? But don't want to. Shui Biao suddenly came up from behind them and said loudly, looking at the appearance of these 2 heroes, a certain family must have encountered difficulties. Shui's 60 taels of silver should be treated as a favor. Shui Biao's family has a great business, so they really don't need these 60 taels of silver. When the two men heard this, their expressions became a little more serious. Zhang Heng of a certain family, this is my younger brother Zhang Shun. Now we brothers are encountering some difficulties. I wonder if the master would like to borrow another 300 taels of silver. Oh, hearing this, Shui Biao became interested and waved his hand to the boy to get the money. Shui Biao, who personally took the 300 taels of silver, placed it in Zhang Heng's hand. Go, don't talk about borrowing, this money will be treated as a gift from Shui to the two heroes. Hey hey, Zhang Heng heard the words and laughed strangely twice, then held his brother's hands and turned around to leave. The boy was dumbfounded and said quickly, "No, the shopkeeper hasn't told those two people when we will set off." Need not. Shui Biao waved his hand openly and left. He saw that the two brothers did not look like ordinary people. If they dared to ask for 300 taels of silver, they must have the confidence to do so. In this case, Shui Biao is also willing to ask for a favor from the other party. I hope everyone will support it and subscribe more.